Whisper of Deception. A dark romance novel. Prologue. The translation. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Isla Munro stared at the cream-colored paper, thick and expensive between her fingers. The return address was embossed in gold, Castellano Enterprises. Inside, a single sheet detailed what should have been a straightforward assignment. International Business Negotiation. Russian to English interpretation. One evening. $5,000. $5,000 would cover 3 months of her mother's medication. It would buy time. It would buy breathing room. She should have known better. The suite occupied the entire top floor of the Carlyle Hotel in Manhattan. Isla arrived 15 minutes early, her portfolio clutched against her chest like armor. A man in a black suit, no tie, expensive watch, opened the door before she could knock. Miss Munro, it wasn't a question. His eyes traveled over her, navy blazer, white blouse, simple heels, assessing, cataloging. This way. The suite's main room had been converted into a makeshift conference space. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Manhattan skyline, the city lights just beginning to compete with the dying sun. A long table dominated the center, papers arranged in neat stacks, water glasses precisely positioned. But it was the men that made her breath catch. 4 Russians sat on the left side of the table, their suits dark and identical, faces carved from stone. They didn't look at her when she entered. Didn't acknowledge her presence at all. On the right side sat 2 men. The younger one, maybe 30, stood when she walked in. Expensive suit, easy smile. Miss Munro. Thank you for coming. He extended his hand. Marco Ricci, we spoke on the phone. She shook it, grateful for the steadiness of her own grip. Of course. Your position will be here. Marco gestured to a chair positioned between the 2 groups, slightly behind the table's head. You'll interpret for Mr. Castellano during the negotiation. Mr. Castellano, the second man. Isla had been so focused on the Russians, she'd barely registered him. Now, as Marco stepped aside, she saw him fully. Victor Castellano sat at the head of the table like a king holding court, dark hair, touched with gray at the temples, strong jaw. Eyes the color of winter storms. Pale gray, cold, assessing. He wore his power the way other men wore cologne, casually, inevitably. He didn't stand when she approached. Didn't smile, just watched her with those predator's eyes as she took her seat. Miss Munro. His voice was low, accent barely detectable. Italian, she thought. Old money and old sins. I trust Marco explained the nature of tonight's discussion. Business negotiation, she said, pleased her voice didn't waver. I'll provide accurate interpretation between English and Russian. Something flickered in his expression. Amusement, maybe. Accurate, yes, that's very important. He leaned back in his chair, one hand resting on the table, fingers drumming a slow rhythm. Tell me, Miss Munro, how many languages do you speak? The question felt like a test. 7 fluently. Russian, Italian, Mandarin, Spanish, French, Arabic, and English. Impressive. He said it without inflection, but his eyes sharpened. And where did you learn Russian? University. I did my graduate work in comparative linguistics before... She stopped herself. Before her father died and left them drowning in his debts. Before she had to drop out and piece together a living from freelance translation work. Before I left the program. Pity, Victor said softly. Then he turned to the Russians and said something in their language, too quick for her to catch. The eldest Russian, gray beard, eyes like chips of ice, replied. His voice was gravel and cigarettes. Victor nodded, made a gesture with his hand. We'll begin, Victor said. Then, to her, please translate everything exactly as spoken. No embellishments, no omissions. Do you understand? Of course. The first hour was exactly what she'd expected. Business terms, delivery schedules, payment structures. The Russians spoke in clipped, formal Russian. Victor responded in English, his tone measured and precise. She translated between them, her voice steady, professional. Except she began to notice things. The way the Russians never mentioned what they were actually negotiating. No product names, no specific quantities. Just vague references to the shipment and the merchandise. The way Victor's fingers never stopped that slow, deliberate drumming on the table. The way Marco stood near the door, not watching the Russians but watching her. Then the gray-bearded Russian, Dmitri, they'd called him, said something that made her blood run cold. The previous interpreter, he said in Russian, she was very helpful, it's unfortunate about her accident. Isla's hand stilled on her notepad. What did he say? Victor asked. His tone was casual. His eyes were not. She swallowed. He said the previous interpreter was very helpful. He expressed regret about her accident. Ah, Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. Please, tell Dmitri that accidents are indeed unfortunate, but unavoidable when one becomes careless. She translated. Dmitri's expression didn't change. The meeting continued. Her mouth formed words. Her voice remained steady, but her mind raced. Previous interpreter. Accident. She was translating for criminals. She had to be. Legitimate businessmen didn't speak in coded language, didn't reference accidents with that particular tone of finality. She needed to leave, take her fee, and disappear. Never look back. But $5,000, her mother's medication, the eviction notice. She stayed. The second hour dragged. Isla translated mechanically, trying not to think about what she was actually hearing. Numbers that were too large for legitimate business. Locations that sounded like shipping routes. References to customs arrangements that made her skin crawl. Then Dmitri stood. We'll take a brief recess, Victor announced. 15 minutes. The Russians filed out to the terrace, smoke already trailing from their cigarettes. Marco followed. Victor remained seated, his attention fixed on some document in front of him. Isla stood, her legs unsteady. The restroom? Down the hall, second door. Victor didn't look up. She escaped to the bathroom, gripping the marble counter as her reflection stared back at her. Pale, wide-eyed, stupid. Just finish the job, she whispered to herself. Take the money, go home, forget everything you heard. When she returned to the conference room, the Russians were back at the table. But something had changed. The air felt different, charged. She took her seat. Victor's drumming fingers had stilled. Gentlemen, Victor said, I believe we've reached an agreement. Dmitri nodded, spoke in Russian. Yes. The terms are acceptable. The shipment will arrive in 3 weeks. Isla translated. Victor smiled, extended his hand across the table. That's when she heard it. One of the younger Russians, dark hair, scar across his cheekbone, leaned toward Dmitri, whispered something, in Russian, so quiet she almost missed it. Устранить свидетеля. Eliminate the witness. Her heart stopped. Her face must have done something. Some micro-expression she couldn't control, because Victor's eyes snapped to hers. For 3 seconds they stared at each other across the table, 3 seconds that felt like drowning. She saw the moment he understood, the way his jaw tightened, the way his gaze sharpened with a lethal focus. He knew she'd understood. Miss Monroe, his voice was silk over steel, would you translate what was just said? Her mouth opened, closed. I didn't catch it clearly. No? He tilted his head slightly, studying her the way a scientist might study a specimen under glass. That's unfortunate. You've been remarkably precise all evening. The room felt smaller, the walls closer. She could hear her pulse in her ears. Perhaps, Victor continued, his eyes never leaving hers. You're tired. It's been a long evening. Yes, she managed. A bit tired. Then we'll conclude. He stood, and the movement was so sudden, so controlled, that she flinched. Thank you, gentlemen. Marco will handle the final arrangements. The Russians stood, shook hands, filed out with Marco in their wake, leaving Isla alone with Victor Castellano. Silence filled the room like water. She gathered her things with shaking hands, tried to stand. Her knees nearly buckled. Sit down. It wasn't a request. She sat. Victor circled the table slowly, each step deliberate. He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "You understood what he said." Again, not a question. She opened her mouth to lie, to deny, but something in his expression stopped her. The absolute certainty, the predatory patience. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." He repeated the word as if tasting it. Then he crouched down, bringing himself level with her, and the casual power in the movement made her breath catch. "Do you know what this means, Miss Monroe?" She couldn't speak, could barely breathe. "It means," he continued, his voice dropping to something almost gentle, almost kind, "that you're no longer just an interpreter. You're a witness. You've seen too much. Heard too much." He paused. "Understood too much." "I won't say anything," the words tumbled out. "I'll forget everything. I need the money for my mother, and then I'll disappear, I promise." "Shh," one finger lifted to his lips. "I know about your mother, Isla. Ellen Monroe. Stage 4 cancer. Harborview Hospice. Behind on payments." His smile was terrible in its gentleness. "I know everything about you." Ice flooded her veins. "Which brings us," Victor said, standing and straightening his cuffs with casual precision, "to our arrangement." "What arrangement?" "You have two choices." He walked to the window, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the Manhattan skyline. "The first is simple. You leave here tonight, and you disappear. Permanently. An unfortunate accident, like the previous interpreter." He glanced back at her. "Your mother would be well cared for, of course. I'm not a monster." Her hands gripped the chair arms. "And the second choice?" He turned to face her fully. "You marry me." The words didn't make sense, couldn't make sense. "What?" "An arranged marriage," he clarified, as if discussing a business merger. "You become my wife. You live in my home. You work as my personal interpreter for all business dealings. In exchange, you stay alive. Your mother receives the best medical care available. Your debts disappear." He paused. "And you never, ever speak of what you've seen or heard. You can't be serious." "I'm always serious, Isla." The way he said her name sent shivers down her spine, like he owned it, like he owned her. "You're intelligent, skilled. And now, unfortunately for both of us, you're a liability. This arrangement keeps you useful, alive, under my control." "That's insane," her voice cracked. "You can't just force someone to marry you because they—" "I can," he interrupted softly, "and I am." He checked his watch. "You have 60 seconds to decide." Her mind raced, screamed. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. But Victor Castellano's eyes told her it was. Cold, patient, absolute. 30 seconds. She thought of her mother, frail, dying, alone. She thought of the previous interpreter. Accident. 10 seconds. She closed her eyes, felt the weight of the choice crushing her chest. "I'll marry you," she whispered. When she opened her eyes, Victor was standing in front of her again. He extended his hand. Elegant, dangerous, inevitable. "Welcome to the family, Miss Monroe." His fingers closed around hers, warm and possessive. "We have 72 hours to make the arrangements. I suggest you say goodbye to your old life." He pulled her to her feet with effortless strength, and she realized with sick certainty that she'd just sold herself to the devil. But at least her mother would live. At least she would live. For now. Chapter 1. The Proposal. Isla didn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her lumpy futon in her studio apartment, staring at the business card Victor Castellano had pressed into her hand before his driver deposited her on the curb at 2 a.m. heavy cardstock. Embossed lettering, a phone number, nothing else. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The $5,000 sat in an envelope on her coffee table. Payment for services rendered, Marco had said with that easy smile that didn't reach his eyes. Blood money, her mind whispered. She'd earned it by witnessing something she shouldn't have, by understanding words that were meant to kill, by agreeing to marry a man who probably had more blood on his hands than she wanted to imagine. At 6 a.m. her phone rang. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped. She let it ring 3 times before answering, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. "Hello? Miss Monroe." Victor's voice was as smooth as she remembered, cultured and cold. "I trust you had time to consider our arrangement." She closed her eyes. "I already agreed." "Yes, but I've found that people often reconsider in the light of day, particularly when faced with decisions made under duress." There was amusement in his tone. He was enjoying this. "So I'm giving you one final opportunity. You can walk away. Right now. Disappear. I'll even give you a 24-hour head start." Her heart hammered. "And then?" "And then my people will find you. It might take a day. It might take a week. But they will find you, Isla. And when they do—" He let the silence stretch. "Well, I did warn you about accidents." She thought about running. Grabbing her mother from the hospice, buying bus tickets to nowhere, disappearing into some small town where men like Victor Castellano didn't exist. But her mother couldn't travel. The cancer had metastasized to her bones. Moving her would kill her faster than staying put. "I'm not running," Isla said quietly. "No," Victor sounded pleased. "No, you're not. Because you're intelligent enough to understand that this arrangement benefits us both. You get protection, resources. Your mother gets the best care money can buy. And I get," he paused, "an asset." "Asset. Not wife, not partner. Asset." "When?" she asked. "Marco will collect you at noon. Bring whatever you can't live without. Everything else will be provided." "Just like that?" "Just like that." His voice dropped, became almost gentle. "Welcome to your new life, Isla. I suggest you say your goodbyes." The line went dead. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Harborview Hospice smelled like disinfectant and dying flowers. Isla signed in at the front desk with hands that had finally stopped shaking, replaced by a numb, hollow calm. The kind of calm that came after you'd already made the worst decision of your life and there was no going back. Her mother's room was on the 3rd floor, small, sterile. A single window overlooking the parking lot. Ellen Monroe lay in the hospital bed, her body so frail she barely made an impression under the thin blanket. Once she'd been beautiful. Dark hair, bright eyes, quick laugh. Cancer had stolen all of that, left behind a ghost. "Baby," her mother's eyes opened, focusing slowly. Her voice was paper-thin. "You came early." Isla pulled a chair close to the bed, taking her mother's hand. The bones felt like bird wings under papery skin. "I have news, Mom." "Good news?" Hope flickered in those faded eyes. Isla forced a smile. "I got a job, a really good one. It's going to cover all your medical bills. Everything. The best doctors, the best treatments." "Isla." Her mother's grip tightened with surprising strength. "What did you do?" "Nothing illegal," she said quickly, which was true. Marrying someone wasn't illegal, even if it was under duress. Even if it was to a man who definitely operated outside the law. I'm going to be working as a private interpreter for a very wealthy client. It requires me to live on site, so I won't be able to visit as often, but—" "You're lying to me." Her mother's eyes searched her face. Mothers always knew. "I can see it. Something's wrong." Isla's throat tightened. "Nothing's wrong, I promise. I need you to trust me, okay? Everything's gonna be fine." "You sound like your father." The words were soft. Sad. Right before he disappeared into his gambling debts and left us with nothing. The comparison stung because it was accurate. Isla was doing exactly what her father had done, making desperate choices, hoping they'd somehow work out, dragging the people she loved into consequences they didn't deserve. "This is different," she whispered. "I'm fixing things, not breaking them." Her mother studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Okay, baby, I trust you." She paused. "But if you're in trouble—" "I'm not. You can tell me. You know that, right?" Isla blinked back tears. "I know." She stayed for 2 hours, talked about everything and nothing. Avoided mentioning marriage, or Victor Castellano, or the fact that in a few hours, her entire life would belong to a man she'd met exactly once. When she finally stood to leave, her mother caught her hand again. "Isla?" "Yeah, Mom." "Whatever you're doing, be careful." Isla kissed her forehead, breathing in the familiar scent beneath the hospital antiseptic. "I will. I love you. Love you too, baby." Walking out of that room felt like stepping off a cliff. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Marco arrived at exactly noon, driving a black Mercedes that probably cost more than Isla had earned in her entire life. He stepped out wearing another expensive suit, sunglasses hiding his eyes, and surveyed her apartment building with barely concealed distaste. Miss Monroe. He opened the rear door. "Ready?" She clutched her single suitcase. Everything she owned that mattered fit inside, and glanced back at her building one last time. Peeling paint. Broken buzzer. The bodega on the corner where she bought instant ramen in bulk. "As I'll ever be," she said. The drive took 40 minutes, leaving the city behind for the sprawling estates of Connecticut. Isla watched the landscape change through the tinted windows, cramped urban blocks giving way to tree-lined streets, then to properties with gates and security cameras, and the kind of money that bought privacy. Marco didn't speak, didn't make small talk, just drove with the smooth efficiency of someone who'd done this many times before. Picked up people who'd made deals with devils. The Castellano estate appeared suddenly, hidden behind 12-foot stone walls and iron gates that opened silently as they approached. The driveway curved through manicured grounds, perfectly trimmed hedges, sculptural fountains, gardens that probably required a full-time staff. The house itself was a masterpiece of modern architecture. 3 stories of glass and stone, all clean lines and expensive taste. Balconies overlooked the grounds. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the sky. It looked like a prison designed by someone with excellent aesthetic sense. The car stopped beneath a covered portico. Marco opened her door. "This way." Isla stepped out, her cheap suitcase suddenly embarrassing in this context. A woman in her 50s, gray hair pulled into a severe bun, crisp black dress, appeared at the entrance. "Miss Monroe," the woman said with a slight accent. Italian, Isla thought. "I am Rosa, the head of household staff. Mr. Castellano is waiting for you in his office. Marco will show you the way. I'll have your belongings taken to your room." Before Isla could respond, Rosa had already taken her suitcase and disappeared into the house. "Come on," Marco said, gesturing for her to follow. The interior was as stunning as the exterior. Marble floors, original artwork that belonged in museums, furniture that whispered old money and older power. Isla's footsteps echoed in the massive foyer, the sound swallowed by the cathedral ceiling. Marco led her down a hallway past rooms she didn't have time to examine, and stopped at a set of double doors, heavy wood, brass handles. He knocked once. "Boss? She's here." "Send her in." Marco pushed open the doors and stepped aside. Isla took a breath and walked into Victor Castellano's office. The room was all dark wood and leather. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with volumes in multiple languages. A massive desk dominated the space, papers arranged in neat stacks. Behind the desk, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds. Victor stood, with his back to her, hands in his pockets, staring out at his empire. He wore black slacks and a white dress shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Even in casual clothes, he radiated authority. "Close the door," he said without turning around. Isla heard the soft click behind her. They were alone. "Come here." She approached slowly, her heart hammering. When she was a few feet from the desk, he finally turned to face her. Those winter storm eyes assessed her with clinical precision. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater, the nicest clothes she owned, and she felt utterly exposed under his gaze. "Did you say goodbye to your mother?" he asked. "Yes." "Did you tell her the truth?" "No." "Good." He moved around the desk, leaning against the edge, close enough that she caught his scent. Expensive cologne, leather, something darker underneath. The less she knows, the safer she is. Isla's hands clenched at her sides. "You said you'd take care of her medical bills." I already have. He pulled a folder from the desk and handed it to her. Harborview Hospice has been paid in full for the next 2 years. Dr. Chen, the best oncologist on the East Coast, has been retained for her care. A private nurse will begin tomorrow. She opened the folder with trembling fingers. Legal documents, payment confirmations, her mother's medical chart with notes from a doctor she'd never been able to afford. Her voice broke. This is too much. This is the arrangement. Victor's expression didn't change. I keep my word, Isla. You should remember that. She looked up at him, this dangerous man who'd just given her mother a chance at life. Thank you. Something flickered in his eyes. Don't thank me. You're paying for this. With what? I don't have anything. With your freedom, he said it simply, matter-of-factly. With your obedience. With every translation you provide. Every secret you keep. Every moment you spend pretending to be my devoted wife. He tilted his head slightly. That's the price. The words settled over her like ice water. She'd known this, of course, but hearing it stated so plainly made it real. Speaking of which, Victor continued, straightening from the desk. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. We need to discuss the terms. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, platinum band, enormous diamond, smaller stones encrusting the setting. It probably cost more than her mother's house. We'll be married in 3 days, he said, taking the ring from the box. Private ceremony, judge, a few witnesses from my organization. Your attendance is, obviously, required. Obviously, she echoed faintly. After the ceremony, you'll live here. Your role will be threefold. He began ticking items off on his fingers. First, you'll serve as my personal interpreter for all business dealings. Russian is your primary language, but I may require others. Second, you'll maintain the appearance of a devoted wife at social functions. Third, you'll keep every secret you learn in this house. Speak to no one about my business. Not friends, not family, no one. His eyes locked on hers. Break this rule, and the protection I'm offering disappears. What about, Isla forced herself to ask, what about marital duties? One corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile. Are you asking if I expect you in my bed? Heat flooded her face, but she held his gaze. Yes. No. The answer was immediate. This is a business arrangement. I have no interest in forcing myself on unwilling women. Your body is your own. He paused. However, in public you will play the part convincingly. We'll need to appear intimate, affectionate, believable. I can do that, she said, though her stomach churned at the thought. Can you? He stepped closer, invading her space with casual authority. Let's test that. Before she could react, he took her left hand. His fingers were warm, strong, as he slid the engagement ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. He'd probably had her measured without her knowledge. Now, he murmured, his thumb brushing over the massive diamond, smile at me like you're thrilled to be engaged. Isla's heart raced. She forced her lips to curve, tried to make it reach her eyes. Victor's expression didn't change. Terrible, you look terrified. I am terrified, she shot back. Then, learn to hide it. His hand moved to her chin, tilting her face up. In 3 days, you'll stand in front of witnesses and pledge your life to me. They need to believe it. Which means you need to believe it. At least when we're being watched. She swallowed hard, trapped in his gaze. And when we're not being watched? His thumb traced her jawline, and she hated the shiver that ran through her. When we're not being watched, he said softly, you can hate me all you want, as long as you obey me. He released her and stepped back, the spell breaking. Isla's hand flew to her face where his fingers had been, her skin burning from the contact. Rosa will show you to your room, Victor said, returning to his desk as if nothing had happened. You'll have the West Wing suite. Marco will brief you on security protocols. Dinner is at 7. Don't be late. That's it? Isla asked. I just move in? Start my life as your fiancé? He glanced up, those pale eyes unreadable. What else did you expect? I don't know. A contract? Legal documents? Those will be handled by my attorneys. You'll sign them before the wedding. He picked up a pen, attention already shifting to the papers on his desk. You should rest. You look exhausted. She was being dismissed. Like an employee. Which, she supposed, was exactly what she was. Isla turned toward the door, the weight of the ring strange and heavy on her finger. Isla? She stopped, looked back. Victor was watching her again, expression unreadable. I meant what I said. I keep my word. Follow the rules, and you'll be safe. Protected. Your mother will have everything she needs. He paused. But cross me, and I will destroy you. Am I clear? Crystal, she whispered. Good, now go. She fled. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The West Wing suite was larger than her entire apartment had been. King-size bed. Sitting area with a fireplace. Bathroom with a soaking tub and separate shower. A walk-in closet already filled with clothes. Designer labels, her exact size, every color and style she could possibly need. Isla stood in the center of it all, her cheap suitcase looking pathetic on the expensive luggage rack, and felt the reality of her situation crash over her in waves. She'd sold herself, to a criminal, to a man who could smile while discussing murder. But her mother would live, would have the best care money could buy. Was that worth it? Was any amount of suffering worth saving someone you loved? Isla looked down at the ring on her finger. The diamond caught the light, throwing rainbows across the walls. Beautiful, expensive. A shackle made of platinum and lies. She had 3 days until she became Mrs. Victor Castellano. 3 days to figure out how to survive in a world of whispers and violence. 3 days to learn how to smile while drowning. She walked to the window, pressing her forehead against the cool glass, and wondered if she'd just made a deal with the devil, or if the devil had made a deal with her. Either way, there was no going back now. Chapter 2. The Arrangement. Isla woke to sunlight streaming through curtains she didn't remember closing. For 3 blissful seconds, she forgot where she was. Then she saw the ring on her finger, felt the silk sheets beneath her, and reality came crashing back. Victor Castellano's mansion. Victor Castellano's prisoner. Victor Castellano's future wife. She sat up, her body aching from tension she'd carried through a fitful night. The bedside clock read 6:47 a.m. A note lay on the nightstand, written in elegant script. Breakfast at 7:30. My office. Don't keep me waiting. -V. So it began. Isla showered in the marble bathroom, trying not to think about how much this one room probably cost. The closet held dozens of outfits, all her size, all expensive. She chose simple black slacks and a cream blouse, attempting to look professional. Competent. Not like a woman who'd been coerced into an arranged marriage with a criminal. At exactly 7:30, she knocked on Victor's office door. Enter. He sat behind his desk, already dressed in a 3-piece suit despite the early hour. A breakfast spread covered a side table. Pastries, fruit, coffee, juice. Far too much food for 2 people. Punctual, Victor observed, not looking up from the document he was reading. Good, sit. Isla took the chair across from his desk, folding her hands in her lap to hide their trembling. The ring felt like a brand. Coffee? He asked, still focused on his papers. Yes, please. He pressed a button on his desk. Moments later, Rosa appeared with a cup of coffee, prepared exactly how Isla preferred. Cream, no sugar. She hadn't told anyone how she took her coffee. Thank you, Isla murmured as Rosa disappeared. I had your preferences researched, Victor said casually, finally looking up. Coffee, food, music, reading habits, sleep schedule. I don't like surprises. The violation of privacy should have angered her. Instead, it just made her feel more trapped. Of course. We have a busy 3 days ahead of us. He set aside his document and stood, moving to the breakfast table. Today you'll meet with my attorneys. You'll sign several documents: prenuptial agreement, non-disclosure agreement, power of attorney for medical decisions regarding your mother. Isla's head snapped up. Power of attorney? Standard procedure. He poured himself coffee with precise movements. If something happens to you, I need legal authority to ensure her care continues uninterrupted. If something happens to you. The unspoken threat hung in the air. Tomorrow, he continued, you'll be fitted for your wedding dress. Marco has arranged appointments with 3 designers. Choose whichever you prefer. I don't get a say in anything else, but I can pick my own dress? The words escaped before she could stop them. Victor's eyes sharpened, but a small smile played at his lips. You have spirit, I appreciate that. He took a sip of coffee. But watch your tone. I'm offering you choices where I don't have to. Don't make me reconsider that generosity. She bit her tongue, nodded. Better. He gestured to the breakfast spread. Eat. You barely touched dinner last night. Isla hadn't realized he'd noticed. She'd picked at her food in the formal dining room, too anxious to swallow more than a few bites while he watched her with those calculating eyes. She took a croissant, forcing herself to eat. It was excellent, buttery, flaky, probably made by a private chef. Everything in this house was perfect, polished. A gilded cage with croissants. After the attorneys, Victor said, returning to his desk, Marco will brief you on security protocols. You'll be assigned a detail. A detail? Bodyguards. You're a Castellano now, or you will be in 3 days. That makes you a target. You don't go anywhere without protection. The croissant turned to ash in her mouth. I'm a prisoner. You're an investment. He said it without inflection, like he was discussing stock portfolios. One I intend to protect. How generous. His gaze locked on hers. Sarcasm doesn't suit you, Isla. Save it for when we're alone. In public, you're devoted, grateful, madly in love with your husband. He paused. Can you manage that? She set down the croissant, her appetite gone. I'll manage. Good, because tomorrow night we have our first public appearance. Charity gala. Black tie. You'll be introduced as my fiancé. He pulled another folder from his desk and slid it across to her. Study these. Names, faces, relationships. You'll need to know who's who. Isla opened the folder. Dozens of photographs stared back at her. Powerful men and women, each with a brief biography. Politicians, business moguls, people who smiled for cameras while conducting business in shadows. These are your associates, she said slowly. Some are business partners. Some are competitors. Some are enemies pretending to be friends. His fingers drummed that slow, deliberate rhythm on the desk. You'll learn to tell the difference. Your ability to read people will be useful. Is that why you chose me, my skills? I chose you because you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. His bluntness was startling. But yes, your skills are why you're still alive. Languages, observation, intelligence, all valuable assets. I don't waste resources, Isla. You'll earn your keep. The words stung more than they should have. She was a tool, nothing more. A knock interrupted the tense silence. Marco entered without waiting for permission, his expression troubled. Boss, we have a situation. Victor's demeanor changed instantly. The casual breakfast companion vanished, replaced by something harder. Dangerous. What kind of situation? Marco's eyes flicked to Isla, hesitant. She stays, Victor said. She needs to learn how this works anyway. Marco nodded. The Russians, Dimitri's people, made contact. They want to move up the timeline on the shipment. Isla's stomach dropped. The shipment. The deal she'd interpreted. The reason she was here. When? Victor asked. Next week. They're concerned about increased port security. Tell them no. Victor's voice was ice. The timeline was agreed upon. Changing it now suggests either incompetence or desperation. Neither inspires confidence. They won't like it, Marco warned. I don't care what they like. I care about what protects our interests. He leaned back in his chair. Set up a call for this afternoon. I'll explain the situation in terms they'll understand." Marco left, and Isla realized she'd been holding her breath. She forced herself to exhale slowly, trying to calm her racing heart. Victor watched her with clinical interest. "Frightened? Should I be?" "Always." He stood, buttoning his jacket with precise movements. "But fear is useful. It keeps you sharp, alert." He approached her chair, and she fought the urge to lean away. "You'll sit in on the call this afternoon. I want you to observe. Learn how these negotiations work." "I thought I was just an interpreter." "You're whatever I need you to be." His hand lifted, and she flinched, but he only adjusted the collar of her blouse with surprising gentleness. "Relax, Isla. I'm not going to hurt you." "You've threatened to kill me multiple times," she pointed out, voice barely steady. "If you betray me, there's a difference." His fingers lingered at her throat, and she felt her pulse jump beneath his touch. "I protect what's mine, but I destroy what threatens me. As long as you remember which category you fall into, we'll get along perfectly." He stepped back, breaking the spell. Isla's hand flew to her collar where his fingers had been. "The attorneys will be here in an hour," Victor said, returning to his desk as if he hadn't just been touching her throat. "Rosa will show you to the meeting room. Read the documents carefully before you sign them. I value intelligence, not blind obedience." "And if I refuse to sign?" He didn't look up from his computer. "You won't." The certainty in his voice made her want to scream. "How can you be so sure?" "Because refusing means your mother loses her medical care. Refuses means you lose my protection. Refuses means you become a liability." Now he did look up, and his eyes were winter storms again. "And we both know what happens to liabilities in my world." Isla stood on shaking legs. "I'll sign." "I know." He returned his attention to the screen. "You're dismissed." Asterix, asterix, asterix. The meeting room was all mahogany and leather, dominated by a conference table that could seat 20. 2 attorneys waited, a man and a woman, both impeccably dressed, both wearing the same carefully neutral expression. "Miss Monroe," the woman extended her hand. "I'm Patricia Reeves. This is my colleague James Chen. We'll be handling your legal documentation today." Isla shook their hands, noting the expensive watches, the designer briefcases. Victor Castellano hired the best. Of course he did. "Please, sit." Patricia gestured to a chair. "We have several documents that require your signature. I'll walk you through each one." For the next 2 hours, Isla read contract after contract. The prenuptial agreement was straightforward. She was entitled to nothing if the marriage ended, except for a modest monthly stipend. The non-disclosure agreement was terrifying. Breach of confidentiality resulted in immediate legal action and financial penalties that would bankrupt her for life. But it was the medical power of attorney that made her hands shake. "This grants Mr. Castellano complete authority over your mother's healthcare decisions," Patricia explained, her tone professional. "In the event you're unable to make those decisions yourself, or if you predecease her, he becomes her legal guardian." "What if I want someone else to have that power?" Isla asked. "A friend, or—" "There is no one else," James said quietly. "Your mother has no other living relatives. Your father is deceased. You have no siblings. Mr. Castellano is offering to ensure her care continues regardless of your circumstances." Translation: "Sign this, or she's on her own." Isla picked up the pen. Her hand hovered over the signature line. "Miss Monroe," Patricia said gently, "you don't have to sign anything you're not comfortable with." They both knew that was a lie, but Isla appreciated the kindness in the deception. She signed, and signed, and signed. Document after document, each one binding her more tightly to Victor Castellano, each one stripping away another piece of her autonomy. When it was done, Patricia gathered the papers with efficient movements. "Congratulations, Miss Monroe, everything is in order. The wedding is scheduled for 2 p.m. on Saturday, at Mr. Castellano's private chapel. A judge will officiate. Witnesses will include Marco Ricci and Rosa Santos." "That's it?" Isla asked. "No family? No friends?" Mr. Castellano prefers intimate ceremonies. Patricia's smile didn't reach her eyes. I'm sure you understand. Isla understood perfectly. No witnesses who might ask questions. No one who might notice the bride looked terrified. After the attorneys left, Isla sat alone in the conference room, staring at her hands. The engagement ring caught the light, mocking her. In 3 days, she'd have a wedding band to match, a matching set of shackles. Miss Monroe? She looked up to find Marco in the doorway. Yes? Boss wants you in his office. The call with the Russians starts in 10 minutes. Her stomach twisted. Now? Now. She followed him through the mansion's corridors, her mind racing. She was about to sit in on a business call between criminals. About to hear things that could get her killed if she ever repeated them. Welcome to your new life, she thought bitterly. Victor's office had been transformed. A large monitor dominated one wall, currently showing a blank screen. A recording device sat on the desk, red light already blinking. Sit there. Victor indicated a chair positioned slightly behind his desk. You'll interpret if needed, but mostly, just listen. Observe. Learn to read the subtext. Isla took her seat as the monitor flickered to life. 4 faces appeared, Dmitri and 3 other Russians, all in a room that looked like a warehouse office. Harsh lighting, concrete walls, the kind of place where bad things happened. Dmitri, Victor's voice was cordial, professional. Thank you for making time. Castellano, Dmitri's accent was thick. We have concerns about the timeline. So I've heard. Marco relayed your request to move up the shipment. Not a request, a necessity. Port security has increased. Our window is narrowing. Victor leaned back in his chair, fingers drumming. Then perhaps we should reconsider the port altogether. I have alternative routes. Alternative routes take time. Time we don't have. Then perhaps, Victor said softly, you should have planned better. Dmitri's face hardened. Careful, Castellano. We are partners, but we are not friends. Precisely why I won't compromise the security of this operation for your poor planning. Victor's voice never rose, never wavered. The original timeline stands. 3 weeks, not a day sooner. And if we find another buyer? You won't. Victor smiled, and it was terrifying in its certainty. Because you need my distribution network. You need my contacts. You need me far more than I need you. He paused. But please, try to find another buyer. I'll even give you a head start, before I inform them of your reliability issues. Silence on the other end. Isla watched the Russians exchange glances, saw the moment they realized they'd lost this negotiation. 3 weeks, Dmitri finally said. But the price increases 10% for the delay. The price remains as agreed. Victor's tone was final. Unless you'd like to renegotiate the entire contract. I'm sure we can find clauses that work more favorably for me. Another pause. Then Dmitri nodded stiffly. 3 weeks. Original terms. Excellent. I'm glad we understand each other. Victor's smile widened fractionally. And Dmitri, next time you want to change our agreement, don't send Marco a message. Call me directly. I dislike intermediaries. The screen went black. Victor swiveled his chair to face Isla. Well, what did you observe? She swallowed, trying to organize her racing thoughts. You let him think he had leverage. Then you showed him he didn't. And you recorded everything. So if he tries to deny the terms later, you have proof. Good. He stood, moving to the window. What else? He's scared, Isla said slowly. He tried to hide it, but he's desperate. The port security increase is real. He needs this deal more than you do. Victor turned, studying her with new interest. How did you know? His eyes. When you mentioned finding another buyer, he glanced at the man on his left, looking for permission, or maybe reassurance. He's not operating independently. Someone above him is pressuring him. Impressive. Victor's gaze intensified. You see people, really see them. That's a rare gift. It's survival, she said quietly. My stepfather was unpredictable. I learned to read moods. Anticipate violence. Something flickered in Victor's expression. Something that might have been understanding, but it was gone before she could be sure. Your past has prepared you for this life more than you know, he said. Use those skills. In my world, reading people correctly means the difference between life and death. Is that what this is? Isla asked. Life or death? Always. He approached her chair, and she forced herself not to flinch. But you're under my protection now. As long as you follow the rules, you'll be safe. His hand lifted to her face, and this time she couldn't help the tremor that ran through her. But he only tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture oddly gentle. 3 days, Isla, he murmured. 3 days until you're mine, completely, irrevocably. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Are you ready? She wasn't. Would never be, but she met his eyes and lied. Yes. Liar. But he smiled when he said it. Good. Keep that survival instinct sharp. You're gonna need it. He released her and returned to his desk, dismissing her with the gesture. But as Isla left his office, she felt his eyes on her back, tracking her every movement. Like a predator watching prey, or a husband watching his wife. She wasn't sure which terrified her more. Chapter 3. Whispers in the Dark. The charity gala was held at the Metropolitan Club, all crystal chandeliers and old money. Isla stood in front of the floor-length mirror in her suite, barely recognizing herself. The dress was midnight blue silk, cut to hug every curve before flowing to the floor. Elegant, expensive, the kind of dress that said she belonged in this world. Her hair had been swept up by a stylist Victor had sent, soft curls framing her face, diamond earrings catching the light. The engagement ring glittered on her finger like a warning. She looked like Victor Castellano's fiancée. She felt like an imposter playing dress-up. A knock at the door made her turn. Victor entered without waiting for permission, and the sight of him stole her breath. Black tuxedo, perfectly tailored. White shirt crisp against his tan skin. He looked like power and danger wrapped in Italian wool. His eyes traveled over her slowly, assessing. Beautiful, he said finally, not a compliment, an observation. You'll do well tonight. Is that all I am? The words escaped before she could stop them. A pretty accessory? Tonight, yes. He crossed to her, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. But accessories need the right embellishments. He opened the box to reveal a necklace that made her gasp. Sapphires and diamonds, arranged in an intricate pattern that probably cost more than her mother's house. Turn around, he commanded softly. Isla obeyed, pulse racing as she felt him behind her. His fingers brushed the nape of her neck as he fastened the necklace, and she shivered at the contact. The weight of the jewels settled against her collarbone, cool, heavy, possessive. Perfect, Victor murmured, his breath warm against her ear. His hands rested on her shoulders for a moment too long. Now look at yourself. She turned back to the mirror. The woman staring back at her was a stranger, polished, elegant, wearing enough jewelry to feed a small country. Victor stood behind her, tall and imposing, his hands still on her shoulders. They looked like a couple. A powerful, dangerous couple. Remember, he said quietly, his eyes meeting hers in the reflection. Tonight you're madly in love with me. Smile when I touch you. Laugh at my jokes. Let everyone see how devoted you are. And if I can't? His hands tightened fractionally on her shoulders. You will. Because the alternative is admitting this is a lie. And liars in my world don't last long. He released her and offered his arm. Shall we? Isla took it, her hand trembling slightly as she placed it in the crook of his elbow. His arm was solid beneath the expensive fabric, muscles coiled with controlled strength. Relax, he murmured as they walked toward the door. If you look terrified, people will ask questions. I am terrified. Then, lie better. But his free hand came up to cover hers, the gesture almost reassuring. You'll be fine, I'll be with you the entire time." Somehow that didn't make her feel better. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The ballroom was a sea of wealth and power. Women in designer gowns, men in custom tuxedos, all wearing smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Waiters circulated with champagne and canapés. A string quartet played in the corner, the music barely audible over the buzz of conversation. Isla felt every eye turn toward them as they entered. "Castellano!" A man in his 60s approached, hand extended. Silver hair, expensive watch, politician's smile. "Good to see you. And this must be the mystery woman we've all been hearing about. Senator Morrison." Victor shook his hand with casual authority. "Allow me to introduce my fiancée, Isla Monroe." Fiancée. The word felt like a brand. Charmed. The senator took her hand, his grip lingering just a moment too long. "Victor's been keeping you a secret. Where did you two meet?" Isla's mind raced. They hadn't discussed a cover story. She opened her mouth, unsure what to say. "A business dinner," Victor interjected smoothly, his arm sliding around her waist. The gesture was possessive, protective. Isla was interpreting for a colleague. One look, and I knew I had to know her better. Love at first sight? The senator's eyes gleamed with curiosity. Something like that. Victor pulled Isla closer, and she forced herself to smile up at him like she was gazing at the love of her life instead of her captor. "Isn't that right, darling?" Darling. The endearment felt like poison on his tongue. "I didn't stand a chance," Isla said, surprised at how steady her voice sounded. "Victor can be very persuasive." The senator laughed. "I'm sure he can. Well, congratulations to you both. When's the wedding?" "This Saturday," Victor said. "Private ceremony. Just close family and friends." "So soon. You must be very eager." The senator's eyes moved between them, searching for something. "Or is there a particular reason for the rush?" The implication was clear. Isla felt heat flood her face. Victor's hand tightened on her waist. "The only rush is that I refuse to wait another day to make her mine." His voice was silk and steel. "When you know, you know. Don't you agree, Senator?" It was a subtle threat wrapped in pleasantry. The senator's smile faltered. "Of course. Well, enjoy the evening. I'm sure we'll see more of you both." As he walked away, Victor's mouth was near Isla's ear. "Well done. You played the blushing bride perfectly." "I wasn't playing," she muttered. "He basically accused me of being pregnant. He was testing us, seeing if there were cracks in our story." Victor guided her toward the bar. "Champagne?" "Please." He ordered 2 glasses, his hand never leaving her waist. To anyone watching, they looked like any other engaged couple, intimate, comfortable, in love. "Who is he really?" Isla asked quietly. "The senator?" "Lawrence Morrison, chairs the Senate Finance Committee, takes bribes from anyone willing to pay, useful but not trustworthy." Victor handed her a glass. "Study his face. Remember it. He's one of many people here who would sell you out for the right price." The champagne tasted like fear. For the next hour, Victor paraded her through the ballroom, introducing her to a dizzying array of powerful people. She smiled until her face hurt, laughed at jokes that weren't funny. Let Victor touch her, hand at her waist, fingers brushing her arm, lips grazing her temple, while strangers watched and assumed romance instead of coercion. But she also listened, observed, used the skills Victor had praised. The Russian man in the corner, watching Victor with barely concealed hostility. The woman in red, who touched Victor's arm too familiarly, earning a cold dismissal. The younger man, who approached with deference, whispering something that made Victor's expression harden. "Excuse us," Victor said smoothly to the couple they'd been speaking with. He guided Isla toward a quieter corner of the ballroom, his grip on her elbow firm. "We need to talk. Privately." He led her through a side door into a dimly lit hallway. The moment they were alone, his demeanor shifted. The charming fiancé vanished, replaced by something colder. "What's wrong?" Isla asked. "We have a problem." Victor pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "One of Dmitri's lieutenants is here, Sergei Volkov, the man in the corner wearing the gray suit." Isla's blood ran cold. "The Russians?" "They're not supposed to be here. This is neutral territory." His jaw tightened. "They're sending a message." "What kind of message?" "That they're watching, that they know you're with me now." He looked up from his phone, and his eyes were winter storms. "This changes things." "Changes what things?" "You're not just my interpreter anymore. You're leverage. If they think I care about you, if they think you matter to me, you become a target." The words should have stung. Instead, they terrified her. "So, what do we do?" Victor was silent for a moment, calculating. Then his hand cupped her face, tilting it up. "We convince them you don't matter. That you're just another pretty face, meaningless." "How?" "By showing them I treat you like everyone else I acquire." His thumb traced her lower lip, and she felt heat flood her body despite everything. "Like property, not a person I'd protect." "I don't understand." "When we go back in there, I'm going to be cold to you, dismissive. I'll flirt with other women, ignore you, make you look irrelevant." His eyes searched hers. "Can you handle that?" Pride warred with practicality. "I'm not irrelevant." "No, you're not." Something flickered in his expression. "Regret, maybe, but they need to think you are. It's the only way to keep you safe." "Safe," she repeated bitterly. "Is that what you call this?" "Alive," he corrected. "There's a difference." His hand dropped from her face. "Are you ready?" She wasn't. But she nodded anyway. They returned to the ballroom, and Victor immediately abandoned her. She watched him approach a blonde woman in a red dress, saw him smile in a way he'd never smiled at her, watched the woman touch his arm, lean in close, laugh at something he said. Isla stood alone, champagne glass trembling in her hand, feeling the weight of eyes on her. The Russian in the corner watched her with cold interest. Others whispered behind their hands. The message was clear. Victor Castellanos' fiancée meant nothing to him. It shouldn't have hurt. This was fake. A business arrangement. She didn't actually want Victor to care about her. But standing there, watching him charm another woman while she was dismissed and ignored, something inside her chest twisted painfully. Isla Monroe? She turned to find a man in his 40s. Kind eyes, warm smile. He seemed different from the others, less polished, more genuine. "Yes?" "Thomas Chen. I'm a physician at Harborview Hospice." He extended his hand. "I've been treating your mother." Everything else fell away. "Dr. Chen, I didn't know you'd be here." Charity board member, hazard of the profession. His smile was gentle. "I wanted to tell you, the new treatment protocol is showing promising results. Your mother's pain levels have decreased significantly." Tears pricked Isla's eyes. "Really?" "Really. Whatever you're doing to afford this level of care." He paused, glancing across the room where Victor stood with the blonde. "Well, I hope it's worth it." The implication hung between them. Dr. Chen knew, maybe not the details, but he understood she'd made some kind of deal. "It is," Isla said quietly. "She's all I have." "Then I'm glad she has you." He squeezed her hand briefly. "Take care of yourself, Miss Monroe. In my experience, the price of saving someone else is often paid in pieces of yourself you can't get back." Before she could respond, he was gone, disappearing into the crowd. Isla stood alone again, his words echoing in her mind. "Pieces of yourself you can't get back. Enjoying yourself?" She turned to find the Russian Sergei Volkov, standing too close. He had cold eyes and a smile that made her skin crawl. "I'm fine, thank you," she said, trying to step away. His hand caught her elbow. Not hard, but firm enough to keep her in place. "You are the interpreter." "From the meeting, yes?" Her heart hammered. "I'm sorry, I think you have me confused with someone else." No confusion. His accent was thick, menacing. "I remember faces. Especially pretty faces that understand too much." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Castellanos woman now. Lucky for you. He protects what belongs to him. Sergei's grip tightened. But protection has limits. You should remember that. Is there a problem? Victor's voice cut through the tension like a blade. He appeared beside them, his expression pleasant, but his eyes deadly. Sergei released her immediately, stepping back with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. No problem. Just introducing myself to your lovely fiancé. How thoughtful. Victor's arm slid around Isla's waist, pulling her against him. The gesture was possessive, territorial. But I'm afraid we were just leaving. Early morning tomorrow. Of course. Sergei's gaze moved between them, calculating. Enjoy your evening, Castellano, and congratulations on your upcoming marriage. The threat was unmistakable. Victor's hand tightened on Isla's waist as Sergei walked away. Are you all right? He murmured, his lips near her ear. I'm fine. You're shaking. He recognized me. From the meeting. I know. Victor guided her toward the exit, his movement smooth and unhurried, despite the tension radiating from his body. We're leaving. Now. They made their way through the crowd, Victor nodding to people as they passed, playing the role of devoted fiancé once more. But Isla could feel the coiled violence in him, barely contained. The car was waiting, Marco at the wheel, engine already running. Victor helped her into the back seat with surprising gentleness before sliding in beside her. Drive, he ordered. Marco pulled away from the curb, and only then did Victor allow his facade to crack. His hand ran through his hair, disrupting its perfect arrangement. Fuck! Isla had never heard him curse before. What does this mean? It means they know who you are, what you are. He turned to her, and his expression was grim. It means you're in more danger than I anticipated. You said I'd be safe, that marrying you would protect me. It will, but protection requires proximity. His eyes held hers. Starting tomorrow, you don't leave the estate without me. You don't go anywhere alone. You follow security protocols exactly. I'm already a prisoner, she said bitterly. What's the difference? The difference is whether you're a living prisoner or a dead one. He reached for her hand, and his grip was almost gentle. I know this isn't what you wanted, but I will keep you safe, Isla. I give you my word. Why? The question burst out. Why do you care? I'm just an asset. You said so yourself. Victor was silent for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. Assets are replaceable. He paused. You're more complicated than that. It wasn't a declaration of love, wasn't even affection, but it was something, an acknowledgement that she was more than property to him. Isla looked down at their joined hands, his tanned and strong, hers pale and trembling. The engagement ring caught the streetlights as they drove through the night. 2 more days, she whispered. 2 more days, Victor agreed. And then you'll be mine. Completely, legally, his hand tightened on hers. And I protect what's mine. The words should have terrified her. Instead, watching the city lights blur past the window, feeling the solid warmth of Victor beside her, Isla felt something unexpected. Not quite safety, not quite trust, but something that might, terrifyingly, be the beginning of both. Chapter 4. The Woman Who Knew Too Much. Isla woke to the sound of voices arguing in rapid Italian. She sat up, disoriented. Dawn light filtered through the curtains. The clock read 5:47 a.m. The voices were coming from somewhere below her room. Victor's office, maybe. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Anger, tension. She should stay in her room, mind her own business. But curiosity, or maybe that survival instinct Victor kept praising, drew her to the door. Isla crept into the hallway, following the sound of voices. The mansion was eerily quiet at this hour, staff not yet stirring. She moved silently down the stairs, staying close to the wall. Cannot keep her here like a prisoner, a woman's voice, sharp and furious, speaking Italian. I can do whatever I want, Victor's voice, cold as winter. Also in Italian. She's my concern now, not yours. She's a liability, Victor. You know what happens to liabilities. She's my fiancée. Show some respect. A harsh laugh. Fiancé? You mean hostage? How long do you think you can keep this charade going? Isla froze outside the partially open office door. Through the crack, she could see Victor standing near his desk, jaw tight with controlled fury. A woman paced in front of him, late 30s, dark hair, designer suit. Beautiful and dangerous in equal measure. As long as necessary, Victor said, and this conversation is over. The family won't approve. Marrying some nobody. The family doesn't have a choice. His voice dropped to something lethal. I'm the head of this organization, Valentina. Not you. Not anyone else. What I say goes. Valentina. Isla's mind raced through the files Victor had given her. Valentina Castellano. Victor's cousin. Second in command of the organization. Known for ruthlessness. You're making a mistake, Valentina said. The Russians know about her now. They'll use her against you. Let them try. You care about her. It was an accusation. That's the mistake. In our world, caring about someone makes you weak. I don't care about her. The words were sharp. Final. She's useful. That's all. Isla's chest tightened. She already knew this. Victor had told her repeatedly she was just an asset. But hearing him say it so coldly, so definitively, still hurt. Then prove it, Valentina challenged. Get rid of her, find another interpreter, one who isn't a target. No. Why not, if she doesn't matter? Because I've already invested time and resources in her. Because the wedding is in 2 days. Because, he stopped himself. Because I don't need to explain my decisions to you. Valentina studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled, cold and knowing. You do care. Fuck, Victor. You actually care about this girl. Get out. This will destroy you. You know that, right? The moment they realize she's your weakness. Out. The office door flew open. Isla barely had time to press herself against the wall before Valentina emerged. Heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. She walked past without seeing Isla, her expression thoughtful. Isla waited, heart hammering, until Valentina disappeared down the hallway. Then she started to retreat. I know you're there, Isla. Victor's voice, quiet and weary, froze her in place. Come in. She considered running. But where would she go? She pushed the door open fully and stepped inside. Victor stood by the window, his back to her. He'd clearly been up all night. His shirt was wrinkled, sleeves rolled up, tie discarded on the desk. He looked more human like this, less untouchable. How much did you hear? He asked, without turning around. Enough. Isla's voice was steadier than she felt. She wants you to get rid of me. Valentina wants a lot of things she won't get. He turned to face her and she saw exhaustion in the lines around his eyes. How's your Italian? Fluent enough to understand everything you said. She met his gaze, including the part where you told her I don't matter to you. Something flickered in his expression. You knew that already. Knowing and hearing are different things. She wrapped her arms around herself. Is she right? Am I a mistake? Victor crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping inches from her. You want honesty? Fine. You're a complication. A risk. Everything Valentina said is true. You make me vulnerable. The Russians know you exist now, which means they'll try to use you against me. Then why not let me go? The question came out more desperate than she intended. Why go through with the wedding? His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. The touch was almost gentle. Because letting you go means you're dead within a week. And despite what I told Valentina, I'm not quite ready for that outcome. Why? Isla whispered. Why do you care what happens to me? I don't know. The admission seemed to pain him. I should have killed you that first night. Or at least disappeared you quietly. But I didn't. And now, he dropped his hand. Now I'm stuck with you, and you're stuck with me. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. He moved back to his desk, creating distance. You should go back to your room. The dress fitting is at noon. Rosa will wake you at 10. Isla didn't move. What if I don't want to marry you? He looked up. eyes sharp. You already agreed. Under duress. That doesn't make it real. It will be legally binding. That's real enough. His tone was matter-of-fact. You signed the contracts. You wear my ring. In 2 days you'll stand in front of a judge and pledge your life to me, whether you want to or not. You can't force someone to love you, she said quietly. I'm not trying to. Victor's smile was bitter. I'm trying to keep you alive. Love has nothing to do with it. The words hung between them like a challenge. Isla turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Isla. She looked back. Valentina was right about one thing. The Russians will try to use you against me, which means from now on you don't go anywhere without security. You don't speak to anyone I haven't vetted. You don't trust anyone but me. I don't trust you, she shot back. Smart girl, but there was approval in his eyes. Don't trust anyone, not even me, especially not me. But obey me anyway. It's the only way you survive this. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The wedding dress fitting was surreal. 3 designers had been brought to the estate, each presenting gowns that probably cost more than a car. Isla stood on a platform while they pinned and tucked and discussed alterations in hushed tones. Rosa supervised with critical eyes. The lace one, she declared finally. It suits her. Isla looked at herself in the mirror. The dress was beautiful. Delicate lace over silk, fitted bodice, flowing skirt. She looked like a bride. A real bride, not a hostage being dressed up for show. You look beautiful, Miss Monroe, one of the designers said. Thank you, Isla murmured, but the compliment felt hollow. What did beauty matter when the wedding was a lie? After the designers left, Rosa helped her out of the dress with practiced efficiency. You're having doubts, the older woman observed. Is it that obvious? You have the look of a woman walking to the gallows. Rosa's expression softened. For what it's worth, Mr. Castellano is not a bad man. Dangerous, yes. Ruthless. But not bad. He's forcing me to marry him. Is he? Or is he offering you protection in the only way he knows how? Rosa folded the wedding dress carefully. I've worked for the Castellano family for 30 years. I've seen Victor grow from a boy to the man he is now. He doesn't do anything without reason. And the reason is keeping me quiet about what I witnessed. Perhaps. Or perhaps there's more to it than that. Rosa met her eyes. I saw how he looked at you last night when you came back from the gala. That wasn't the look of a man protecting an asset. That was the look of a man who was worried. Isla wanted to believe her, but belief was dangerous. He told his cousin, I don't matter to him. And you believed him? Rosa smiled sadly. Men like Victor don't admit to caring about anyone. It's a weakness they can't afford. But that doesn't mean they don't feel it. Before Isla could respond, Marco appeared in the doorway. Boss wants to see you, his office. Now. The walk to Victor's office felt like a death march. Isla's mind raced with possibilities. Had he changed his mind? Decided she was too much trouble after all? But when she entered, Victor was focused on his computer, expression unreadable. Sit, he said without looking up. She sat. He pulled up a file on his screen, then swiveled the monitor so she could see. Security camera footage from the gala. Grainy, black and white. Showing her conversation with Sergei Volkov. I had Marco pull this, Victor said. Watch. She watched herself talking to the Russian, watched his hand on her elbow, watched Victor appear and pull her away. The footage was silent, but the body language was clear. Now watch this, Victor said, pulling up another clip. Same camera angle, different timestamp. Sergei, alone in the same spot, speaking into his phone. His expression was cold, calculating. Victor paused the footage and turned to her. Can you read lips? A little. My stepfather. She stopped. Yes. What's he saying? Isla leaned closer to the screen, studying Sergei's mouth. The angle wasn't perfect, but she caught fragments. Something about the interpreter and vulnerable. Victor's jaw tightened. Keep going. She watched Sergei's lips move. Her blood ran cold. After the wedding, when Castellano thinks she's safe, that's when we strike. Fuck. Victor stood abruptly, pacing. They're planning something, using you as bait. What do we do? We accelerate the timeline. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. The wedding happens tomorrow instead of Saturday. We move you to the secure wing of the house immediately, and we find out exactly what the Russians are planning before they have a chance to execute it. Isla's head spun. Tomorrow? But I thought. Plans change. Threats escalate. He looked at her, and his expression was grim. I need to know I can trust you, Isla. Completely. Can I? You're asking me to trust you while forcing me into marriage a day early, she said. That's not exactly inspiring confidence. I'm asking you to stay alive. He crossed to her, gripping her shoulders. The Russians want to use you against me, which means they need you vulnerable, isolated. The safest place for you right now is legally bound to me, living in my house under my protection. Or it makes me an even bigger target. Yes, but a target I can guard. His grip tightened. I won't let them hurt you. Do you understand that? I won't let anyone hurt you. The intensity in his eyes took her breath away. This wasn't the cold, calculating businessman. This was something rawer, more dangerous. Why? She whispered. Why do you care? Because you're mine. The words were fierce, possessive. You became mine the moment you walked into that hotel suite. The moment you understood what you weren't supposed to. The moment I decided to keep you instead of kill you. His forehead pressed against hers. Mine to protect. Mine to keep safe. Mine. That's not. She couldn't finish the thought, couldn't breathe. That's not love, Victor finished for her. I know, but it's all I have to give. He released her and stepped back, the moment breaking. When he spoke again, his voice was controlled, professional. Marco will move your things to the secure wing. You'll stay there until after the wedding. No exceptions. What about my mother? Can I at least call her? Monitored line only. No details about the wedding change. Nothing that could compromise security. He returned to his desk, already focused on his phone. Rosa will bring you dinner. Don't leave your room. I'm a prisoner again. You're protected. He looked up one last time, and his eyes were softer than she'd ever seen them. There's a difference. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The secure wing was at the heart of the mansion, accessed through a biometric scanner that read her fingerprint. Her new room was smaller than the suite she'd been in, but comfortable. One window, bulletproof glass, a panic button by the bed. A prison with luxury bedding. Isla sat on the bed and called her mother on the monitored line. The conversation was brief, carefully edited. Yes, the wedding was soon. Yes, she was happy. Yes, everything was fine. Lies. So many lies. After she hung up, Isla lay back and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow she would marry Victor Castellano. Tomorrow she would legally bind herself to a man who'd threatened her, controlled her, and somehow, impossibly, made her feel safer than she'd felt in years. A man who'd just admitted she was his, not as a person, not as a partner, as property. But property he would protect, property he would guard with his life. Was that enough? Could she live with being owned if it meant being safe? Isla touched the engagement ring on her finger. Tomorrow it would have a matching band. Tomorrow she would be Mrs. Victor Castellano. Tomorrow her old life would end completely. A knock at the door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Come in. Victor entered and she was surprised to see him carrying a tray. Rosa's off duty. I brought you dinner. You brought me dinner? She couldn't hide her shock. Don't get used to it. But there was the ghost of a smile on his lips as he set the tray on the bedside table. Pasta, salad, wine. Eat. You barely touched lunch. He noticed. He always noticed. Thank you, she said quietly. Victor sat in the chair by the window watching her. Tomorrow is going to be difficult. The ceremony itself will be quick. But afterward there'll be a small reception. Key family members. Close associates. You'll need to play the happy bride. I'm getting good at pretending, she said, picking at the pasta. Yes, you are. He was silent for a moment. After tomorrow, things will be different. You'll be my wife legally. That comes with certain expectations. Her heart raced. What kind of expectations? Public ones. We'll need to share a bedroom. Appear intimate. Convince everyone the marriage is real. His eyes met hers. But I meant what I said before. I won't force you into my bed. Your body is your own. So we'll be roommates who happen to be married? Something like that. A pause. Unless you want differently. The suggestion hung in the air between them. Isla set down her fork, pulse pounding. What are you asking? Nothing. Victor stood, moving to the door. I'm stating facts. This marriage is business. But if at some point you decide you want it to be more... He looked back at her. I'm not opposed to renegotiating terms. Heat flooded her face. I don't. Relax, Isla. I'm not propositioning you, but his eyes held something dangerous. Something heated. I'm simply saying that if you ever decide you want your husband to act like a husband instead of a warden, all you have to do is ask. He left before she could respond, the door clicking shut behind him. Isla sat frozen, her mind reeling. Had Victor just suggested? No. He'd simply stated a fact, a possibility, a door left carefully open. She looked down at the pasta, suddenly not hungry. Tomorrow she would marry him. Tomorrow she would become his wife. And tomorrow she would have to decide what kind of marriage this would be. Business arrangement, or something more dangerous. Something that might destroy them both. Chapter 5. Language of Desire. The wedding day arrived wrapped in fog. Isla woke to gray light filtering through bulletproof glass, and the knowledge that in a few hours she would be Mrs. Victor Castellano. The realization sat heavy in her chest, making it hard to breathe. Rosa appeared at 8 with breakfast and an army of stylists. No time to waste, Miss Monroe. The ceremony is at 2. The next hours passed in a blur of preparation, hair pulled into an elegant updo, makeup applied with expert precision. The lace wedding dress that made her look like someone else entirely, someone who belonged in Victor's world. When it was done, Isla barely recognized her reflection. She looked like a bride, a real bride, radiant and beautiful. She felt like a sacrifice being prepared for the altar. You look stunning, Rosa said softly. Mr. Castellano won't be able to take his eyes off you. He doesn't care what I look like. This is just business. Rosa's smile was knowing. Keep telling yourself that, dear. A knock at the door. Marco's voice. It's time. Isla's hands trembled as she picked up her bouquet. White roses and orchids, arranged with devastating beauty. This was it, the point of no return. Marco escorted her through the secure wing, down the grand staircase, toward the private chapel in the east wing of the mansion. With each step, her heart hammered harder. She could still run, could refuse, could. The chapel doors opened. Victor stood at the altar in a black tuxedo that probably cost more than a car. But it was his expression that stopped her breath. Not cold, not calculating. Something else entirely. Something that looked almost like reverence. His eyes tracked her as she walked down the aisle on Marco's arm. The chapel was small, intimate. Only a handful of witnesses. Rosa, Valentina, looking furious. A few men in expensive suits, Isla recognized from the files. And the judge, elderly and solemn. When she reached the altar, Victor extended his hand. Isla took it, feeling the warmth of his skin against hers. You look beautiful, he murmured in Italian. Low enough that only she could hear. You're supposed to say that, she replied in the same language. It's tradition. I don't do anything because it's traditional. His thumb traced her knuckles. I say it because it's true. The judge began speaking, but Isla barely heard the words. Her entire focus was on Victor. The way his eyes held hers, the way his hand gripped hers like he was afraid she might disappear. Do you, Victor Castellano, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. No hesitation, absolute certainty. "And do you, Isla Monroe, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" This was it, her last chance to say no, to refuse, to choose freedom over safety. She looked at Victor, saw the threat and the promise in equal measure, saw the man who'd coerced her into this, and the man who'd sworn to protect her with his life. "I do," she whispered. Victor's expression shifted. Relief, satisfaction, something darker. "The rings," the judge prompted. Marco produced 2 platinum bands. Victor took one, sliding it onto Isla's finger with careful precision. It fit perfectly next to the engagement ring. A matched set of beautiful shackles. Then it was her turn. Her hands shook as she took Victor's ring. His left hand was strong, scarred along the knuckles. She slid the band on, marking him as hers, just as he'd marked her as his. "By the power vested in me," the judge intoned, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Isla's heart stopped. She hadn't thought about this part, hadn't prepared herself. Victor's hand cupped her face, tilting it up. His eyes searched hers for a moment, asking a silent question. Then his mouth descended on hers. The kiss was nothing like she expected, not aggressive, not demanding. Gentle, almost reverent. His lips moved over hers with surprising tenderness, and she felt something inside her chest crack open. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "Mine," he breathed in Italian. "Finally, mine." Applause rippled through the small chapel, but Isla barely heard it. Her entire world had narrowed to Victor, his scent, his warmth, the way he was looking at her like she was something precious. "Congratulations," Valentina said coldly as they turned to face their guests. "I hope you know what you're doing, cousin." "I always do," Victor replied, his arm sliding around Isla's waist with possessive ease. The reception was held in the mansion's formal dining room. Champagne flowed. A string quartet played. Isla smiled until her face hurt, playing the part of the happy bride while Victor's associates offered congratulations that felt like veiled threats. But through it all, Victor never left her side. His hand stayed at her waist, warm and solid. Every time someone approached, he pulled her closer, a clear signal. She belonged to him now. "To the happy couple," someone toasted, raising a glass. Isla sipped champagne and wondered when the trap would spring shut completely. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The party ended near midnight. Isla's feet ached from standing in heels for hours. Her face hurt from smiling, but the worst part was yet to come. "Come," Victor said quietly, taking her hand. "I'll show you to our room." Our room. The words sent panic through her veins. He led her through the mansion to the master suite, a space she'd never seen before. The room was enormous, dominated by a king-size bed. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds. A fireplace crackled with warmth. "Your things have been moved here," Victor said, gesturing to the walk-in closet where her clothes hung next to his. "The bathroom is through there. If you need anything, just ask." He was being formal, careful, like she was a skittish animal that might bolt. "Where will you sleep?" Isla asked, voice barely steady. Victor turned to her, one eyebrow raised. "In my bed. Where else?" You said you wouldn't force." "And I won't." He loosened his tie with practiced ease. "But we're married now. People will expect us to share a room. That means sharing a bed. It doesn't mean I'll touch you." Relief and something that might have been disappointment warred in her chest. "So we just sleep? That's it?" "Unless you want more." His eyes held hers, challenging. "The offer still stands, Isla. This can be whatever you want it to be." "I don't know what I want," she admitted. "Then we'll start with sleeping." He began unbuttoning his shirt, revealing tanned skin and defined muscle. "Get ready for bed. It's been a long day." Isla fled to the bathroom, her heart racing. She changed into the silk nightgown Rosa had left for her. Far too revealing, far too expensive. When she looked at herself in the mirror, She barely recognized the woman staring back. When she emerged, Victor was already in bed, shirtless, reading something on his phone. He glanced up, and his eyes darkened as they traveled over her. "Come here," he said softly. She approached the bed slowly, hyper-aware of the thin silk barely covering her body. Victor set aside his phone and pulled back the covers on the other side. "Get in." Isla slid between the sheets, keeping as much distance between them as possible. The bed was huge, but Victor's presence seemed to fill it entirely. He turned off the light, plunging them into darkness broken only by moonlight through the windows. "Relax," Victor said from his side of the bed. "I'm not going to pounce on you." "I know." "Do you?" There was amusement in his voice. "Your entire body is tense." "I just married a man who threatened to kill me," she shot back. "Forgive me for being a little on edge." Silence. Then, "I never would have killed you." "You said—" "I said a lot of things. To scare you, to control you." A pause. "But I never would have actually done it. Even that first night, when I should have, I couldn't." Isla turned onto her side, facing his silhouette in the darkness. "Why not?" "I don't know." His voice was rough. "You looked at me like I was a monster, and instead of enjoying your fear the way I should have, I wanted to prove you wrong. Stupid. Dangerous." But there it was. "You are dangerous," she whispered. "Yes, but not to you, not anymore." He shifted, and she felt rather than saw him turn toward her. "Come here, Isla." "Why?" "Because you're lying there terrified, and I can't sleep knowing you're afraid of me. Come here." Against her better judgment, she moved closer. Victor's arm came around her waist, pulling her against his chest. She stiffened, but he simply held her, his warmth seeping into her back. "Relax," he murmured against her hair. "Just sleep. That's all this is." But it wasn't. Lying in Victor's arms, feeling his steady heartbeat against her back, Isla felt something shift inside her. The fear was still there. The awareness that he could hurt her if he wanted. But underneath it, something else was growing. Trust. Dangerous, foolish, impossible trust. "Victor?" "Why did you really marry me? The truth?" His arm tightened around her waist. "Because the alternative was losing you. And I find I'm not ready to do that." "That's not love." "No, but it's something." His lips brushed her shoulder, a barely there touch. "Sleep, wife. Tomorrow, we deal with the Russians. Tonight, we're just this." Isla closed her eyes, feeling safe in the arms of the most dangerous man she'd ever met. It made no sense, defied all logic. But as she drifted towards sleep, she realized she didn't care. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Isla woke to sunlight, and the realization she was alone. The sheets beside her were cold. Victor had been gone for a while. A note lay on his pillow. "Meeting with associates. Back by noon. Stay in the room. Row V." She should have been relieved. Instead, she felt abandoned. Ridiculous. She didn't need him, didn't want to need him. But her body still felt warm from where he'd held her all night. Isla showered and dressed in casual clothes from the closet. Designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than her old monthly rent. She was examining the bookshelves lining one wall when the bedroom door burst open. Victor strode in, jaw tight with fury. "Get dressed. Something formal." "We're going out." "I thought you said to stay in the room." Plans changed. He yanked off his jacket, loosening his tie with sharp movements. "The Russians made contact. They want a meeting. Tonight. And you're coming with me." Fear spiked through her. "Is that safe?" "No. But it's necessary." He turned to her, and his eyes were storms. "They specifically requested you be present. Said they want to congratulate my new bride personally." "That's a trap." "Obviously." Victor crossed to her, gripping her shoulders. "Which is why you're going to follow my lead exactly. Do you understand? You speak when I tell you to speak. You translate what I tell you to translate. You don't leave my side for a second." What are they planning? I don't know yet, but we're about to find out. His hand cupped her face. I won't let them hurt you, I promise. Your promises are worth a lot for a man who threatened to kill me, she said, but there was no heat in it. My promises to you are the only ones I intend to keep. He kissed her forehead, the gesture surprisingly tender. Get dressed. Black dress. Look like you belong to me. I do belong to you, legally. No, his eyes held hers. I mean, look like you want to. Like, being mine is a privilege, not a prison. Something in his expression made her breath catch. Is that what you want? For me to want this? More than I should, he admitted quietly. Then he released her and stepped back. Hurry! We leave in an hour. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The meeting was held in a private room at an upscale Russian restaurant in Manhattan. Isla wore a black cocktail dress that hugged every curve, her hair swept up, the sapphire necklace Victor had given her at the gala glittering at her throat. She looked like exactly what she was, Victor Castellano's wife. Dmitri and 3 of his lieutenants were already seated when they arrived. Sergei Volkov among them, his cold eyes tracking Isla with predatory interest. Castellano, Dmitri stood offering his hand, and the lovely bride. Congratulations on your marriage. Thank you, Victor said smoothly, his hand possessive on Isla's lower back. My wife was eager to meet my business associates. Lie. But Isla smiled like it was true. They sat. Vodka was poured. Small talk exchanged in a mixture of English and Russian. Isla translated when needed, hyper-aware of Sergei watching her every move. Then Dmitri leaned back in his chair, expression sharpening. So, the shipment. We've encountered a problem. Victor's fingers stopped drumming on the table. What kind of problem? Port Authority has increased inspections. Our usual routes are compromised. Dmitri's eyes flicked to Isla. We need new arrangements. Your wife's linguistic skills could be useful. We have contacts in Mandarin-speaking territories. No, Victor said flatly. No? Dmitri's smile was cold. I'm offering her employment, good money, all legal. My wife doesn't work for you, she works for me. Sergei leaned forward. Perhaps Mrs. Castellano should decide for herself. You Americans love freedom of choice, yes? The threat was unmistakable. They were testing Victor, seeing how much he valued her, how far he'd go to keep her safe. My wife's choices are her own, Victor said carefully. But I can tell you she's not interested in your offer. Let her speak, Dmitri pressed. Mrs. Castellano, do you not wish to use your considerable talents? All eyes turned to Isla. She felt the weight of the moment. One wrong word, and this exploded into violence. I appreciate the offer, she said in perfect Russian, her voice steady. But I'm afraid my husband is right. My skills are already engaged elsewhere. Pity, Sergei said, also in Russian. Such a waste of potential. But perhaps we can find other ways to benefit from your presence. The way he said it made her skin crawl. Victor's hand tightened on her thigh under the table. Careful, Sergei, Victor said in Russian, his accent flawless. That's my wife you're discussing. Show some respect. Sergei's smile widened. Ah, he does care. How unexpected. Dmitri raised his glass. To new alliances. And beautiful wives who complicate business. The toast felt like a declaration of war. As they left the restaurant an hour later, Isla's hands were shaking. Victor pulled her into the car, his expression murderous. They know, she whispered. They know you care. Yes. Victor's jaw was tight, which means we need to be more careful. Or we could, she stopped herself. Could what? He turned to her, eyes sharp. Make them think this is just sex, physical. Nothing emotional, the words tumbled out. If they think you only want me for that, then I'm not leverage. I'm just a mistress with a marriage license. Victor stared at her. Are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we convince them this marriage is about possession, not affection, lust, not love. Her heart hammered. Can you do that? His hand slid to her nape, pulling her close. Can you? Their faces were inches apart. His eyes were dark, heated. "I don't know," Isla breathed. "But we need to try something before they use me against you." "You're already being used against me," Victor said roughly. "Every time you look at me. Every time you're in danger. You're the weakness I can't afford and can't resist." Then his mouth was on hers, hot and demanding, not gentle like their wedding kiss. Possessive. Claiming. His hand fisted in her hair as he angled her head, deepening the kiss until she couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The car stopped. They'd arrived home. Victor pulled back, breathing hard. "Inside! Now!" They barely made it to the bedroom. Victor kicked the door shut and pressed her against it, his mouth finding hers again. His hands mapped her body through the thin dress, and Isla heard herself moan. "Tell me to stop," he growled against her lips. "Tell me this is a bad idea." "It is a bad idea," she gasped as his mouth moved to her throat. "Terrible. Dangerous." Then, "Tell me to stop." She couldn't, didn't want to. Instead, she pulled him closer, her fingers tangling in his hair. "Isla." Her name was a prayer and a curse on his lips. "You're mine. Say it." "I'm yours," she whispered, and meant it. That was all the permission he needed. Chapter 6. The Glance That Changed Everything. Isla woke wrapped in silk sheets and Victor's arms. Morning light filtered through the curtains, painting the room in shades of gold. She lay still, afraid to move, afraid to break whatever spell had transformed last night from obligation into something else entirely. Victor's chest rose and fell against her back, his breathing deep and even. One arm was draped possessively over her waist, his hand splayed across her stomach. In sleep he looked younger, less dangerous, almost peaceful. Almost. Isla shifted carefully, trying to slip out of bed without waking him. She needed space. Time to process what had happened, what they'd done. "Stay." Victor's voice was rough with sleep, his arm tightening around her. "It's early. I should." "What?" She didn't know how to finish the sentence. Should shower? Should pretend last night didn't happen? Should acknowledge that everything between them had changed? "You should stay in bed with your husband." He pulled her closer, his mouth finding the curve of her shoulder. "We have at least another hour before Marco starts banging on the door." The word husband sent a shiver through her. Real now, consummated, no longer just a legal arrangement. "Victor!" "Don't!" He turned her to face him, his gray eyes serious. "Don't overthink this. Don't convince yourself it was a mistake." "Wasn't it?" The question came out smaller than she intended. "Probably." His thumb traced her lower lip. "But I find I don't care. Do you regret it?" Did she? Isla searched her feelings, expecting to find shame or fear or anger. Instead, she found satisfaction, contentment, the bone-deep certainty that whatever happened next, last night had been inevitable. "No," she admitted quietly, "I don't regret it." Something fierce and possessive flared in his eyes. "Good, because I don't intend to let you go. Not now, not ever." He kissed her then, slow and thorough, and Isla felt herself melting into him. This was dangerous, stupid. Falling for her captor was textbook Stockholm Syndrome. But as Victor's hands mapped her body with reverent possession, Isla couldn't bring herself to care about psychology or logic or self-preservation. She just wanted him. Asterisk, Dodds, Sumptoris Cox. 2 hours later, Isla sat across from Victor in his office, trying to focus on the documents he was explaining, instead of the way his mouth had felt on her skin that morning. "These are the new shipping routes," Victor said, pointing to a map on his screen. "The Russians agreed to the changes. For now." "For now," Isla repeated. "What does that mean?" "It means they're planning something. Dmitri doesn't accept defeat gracefully." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "How's your Mandarin?" "Fluent. Why?" "Because we're meeting with the triads next week. They're offering alternative distribution channels. I need you to interpret." The casual way he said it, like she was just his employee, not the woman he'd been inside of hours ago, should have stung, but Isla was starting to understand Victor. Compartmentalization was survival for him. Business and personal existed in separate boxes. I'll review the terminology, she said professionally. Anything specific I should know? They'll test you, see if you're competent or just decoration. His eyes held hers. Show them what I already know. That you're brilliant. The compliment caught her off guard. You think I'm brilliant? I think you're wasted on translation work. He stood, moving around the desk. You see patterns, read people, understand subtext most people miss. His hand cupped her face. You're the smartest person in any room you enter, including this one. Heat flooded her cheeks. That's not true. It is. You just haven't realized it yet. He kissed her forehead. Stop underestimating yourself, Isla. It's insulting to both of us. Before she could respond, Marco burst through the door without knocking. His expression was grim. Boss, we have a problem. Victor's demeanor shifted instantly. What kind? The Russians. They hit one of our warehouses last night, took the entire shipment. Ice flooded Isla's veins. Victor's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping in his cheek. Casualties? 3 dead, 2 in the hospital. Marco's eyes flicked to Isla, hesitant. They left a message. Show me. Marco pulled out his phone, displaying a photo. Isla's stomach turned. Spray painted on the warehouse wall in Russian. Ваша жена следующая. Your wife is next. Fuck. Victor's hand slammed onto the desk, making Isla jump. Get everyone together. Conference room. Now. Marco left. Victor turned to Isla, his expression hard. You're going to the secure bunker. Today. No arguments. Bunker? Underground. Below the mansion. Reinforced steel. The only access point requires biometric authentication from both of us. He gripped her shoulders. You'll be safe there until I deal with this. Deal with what? Victor, they killed your people. They're threatening me. What are you going to do? His eyes were winter storms. What I should have done the moment they overstepped. I'm going to remind Dmitri exactly who he's fucking with. The cold fury in his voice terrified her. Don't do something you'll regret. The only thing I regret is not seeing this coming sooner. He pulled her against him, hard and possessive. They threatened you, my wife. That means war. I'm not worth starting a war over, Isla protested. You are to me, he kissed her, rough and claiming. Now go. Rosa will take you to the bunker. Stay there until I come for you. How long? As long as it takes. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The bunker was exactly what Victor had described. A reinforced steel room, 30 feet underground, accessed through a hidden elevator behind a bookshelf in the library. It had everything. Bed, bathroom, kitchenette, entertainment system. A luxurious prison. Isla paced the space like a caged animal, checking her phone every few minutes. No signal down here. No way to know what was happening above. Was Victor safe? Was he doing something stupid and violent? Would he come back at all? The hours dragged. Isla tried to read, couldn't focus. Tried to sleep, couldn't settle. All she could think about was that message painted in Russian. Your wife is next. She was sitting on the bed, knees pulled to her chest, when the elevator chimed. Her heart leaped. But it wasn't Victor who stepped out. It was Valentina. Isla stood quickly, every instinct screaming danger. What are you doing here? Visiting my new cousin. Valentina's smile was cold. Victor asked me to check on you while he handles business. Lies. Victor wouldn't have sent Valentina, not after their argument. How did you get access? Isla asked, edging toward the panic button hidden near the bed. I'm family. I have codes. Valentina moved closer, studying Isla like a specimen under glass. You know, I almost admire you, walking into Victor's world with your eyes open, accepting what he is. Most women would have run. I didn't have a choice. We always have choices. Valentina pulled out a gun, casual as checking her phone. You could have refused the marriage, disappeared, taken your chances. Isla's blood turned to ice. What are you doing? Saving my cousin from himself. The gun leveled at Isla's chest. Victor's gone soft. He cares about you. That makes him weak, and weak men don't lead this family. He'll kill you for this. He'll thank me, eventually. Valentina's finger moved to the trigger. Nothing personal, Isla. You seem nice, but you're a liability we can't afford. Time slowed. Isla saw the gun, saw Valentina's finger tightening, saw her death approaching with mechanical certainty. Then she remembered Victor's words. You see patterns, read people, understand subtext. The Russians paid you, Isla said quickly. That's why you know their plans, why you wanted Victor to get rid of me from the start. You're working with Dmitri. Valentina's expression flickered. Confirmation. How much? Isla pressed, stalling. How much did they offer to betray your family? Enough to start my own organization, without Victor's outdated morals holding me back. The gun steadied. Any last words? Yes, Isla met her eyes. You missed one critical detail. What's that? I'm not alone. Valentina's eyes widened a split second before the elevator chimed again. She spun. Victor emerged, gun already drawn. Drop it, Valentina. Victor, Valentina started. Drop, IT. The gun clattered to the floor. Victor kicked it aside, his own weapon never wavering from his cousin's chest. His eyes were murderous. How long? He asked quietly, deadly quiet. How long have you been working with the Russians? Does it matter? It matters to me. He glanced at Isla. Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. Good. Back to Valentina. You were family. I trusted you. And you sold me out for what? Money? Power? For freedom! Valentina spat. Freedom from your rules, your control, your pathetic attachment to that girl. Enough! Victor's voice cracked like a whip. Marco! Marco appeared in the elevator, 2 armed men behind him. He saw the scene and his expression hardened. Take her, Victor ordered. Put her somewhere we can. Discuss her choices. Make sure she's comfortable. For now. As Marco and his men dragged Valentina away, still screaming threats, Victor finally lowered his gun. His hands were shaking. How did you know? Isla asked quietly. I didn't. Not for sure. He holstered his weapon and crossed to her in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. But I've suspected for weeks. Her arguments were too well informed, too aligned with what the Russians wanted. His grip tightened. When Marco said someone had accessed the bunker codes, I knew. Isla buried her face in his chest, breathing in his familiar scent. She was going to kill me. I know. His voice was raw. I'm sorry. I should have seen it sooner. Should have protected you better. You saved me. Barely. He pulled back, cupping her face with shaking hands. If I'd been 5 seconds later, he couldn't finish, couldn't voice the thought. But you weren't, Isla said firmly. I'm alive. I'm safe. You're never safe. Not in my world. His forehead pressed against hers. I should let you go. Divorce you. Send you somewhere the Russians and people like Valentina can't find you. But you won't. No. The admission was torn from him. I'm too selfish. Too obsessed. Too. He stopped, swallowed hard. I can't let you go, Isla. Even knowing it might kill you, I can't. She should have been angry, terrified, demanding her freedom. Instead, she kissed him, fierce and desperate, pouring every complicated emotion into the press of her lips against his. Then don't, she whispered against his mouth. Don't let me go. Victor made a sound, half groan, half prayer, and lifted her, her legs wrapping around his waist as he carried her to the bed. There was no gentleness this time. Just need. Desperation. The frantic urgency of 2 people who'd almost lost everything. Later, much later, they lay tangled together, breathing hard. What happens now? Isla asked quietly. With Valentina? With the Russians? Now we end this. Victor's hand traced lazy patterns on her skin. I'm calling a meeting. All the families, Russians included. We settle this properly. No more games. Is that safe? No, but it's necessary. He turned to face her. And you're coming with me. Victor? They need to see you. Need to understand that threatening my wife means declaring war on me personally. His eyes were hard. You're not hiding anymore, Isla. You're standing at my side, where you belong." The possessiveness should have bothered her. Instead, it made her feel powerful, wanted, claimed in a way that transcended ownership. "When?" she asked. "Tomorrow night. Neutral territory, full security." He pulled her closer. "I need you to do something for me." "What?" "During the meeting, I need you to watch, listen, use those skills I've been praising. The Russians are planning something beyond just threatening you. I need to know what." Isla nodded slowly. "You want me to spy. I want you to be my eyes and ears, to catch what I might miss while I'm busy negotiating." His thumb traced her jaw. "You see things others don't. Use that. Help me protect what's mine." "Including me?" "Especially you." He kissed her softly. "You're the only thing that matters, Isla. Everything else is just noise." The words settled over her like a blanket. Not a declaration of love. Victor didn't do love, but something close, something real. "I'll help," she promised. "Whatever you need." "Good." His arms tightened around her. "Because tomorrow we go to war, and I need my secret weapon by my side." Secret weapon, not hostage, not prisoner, not even just wife. Partner. Isla closed her eyes, feeling the weight of tomorrow pressing down, a meeting with all the families. The Russians. Valentina imprisoned somewhere in the mansion. Victor's enemies circling like sharks. She should have been terrified. Instead, lying in Victor's arms, she felt something else entirely. She felt ready. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The meeting was held in a warehouse on the docks, neutral territory that belonged to none of the families. Isla arrived with Victor, flanked by Marco and 6 armed guards. She wore a blood-red dress that screamed power, the sapphire necklace at her throat, a clear signal, Victor Castellano's wife. Inside, the warehouse had been transformed. A large table dominated the center, chairs arranged for perhaps 20 people. Representatives from 5 families were already seated: Italians, Russians, Chinese, Irish, and one she didn't recognize. Dmitri sat at one end, Sergei beside him. They both smiled when Isla entered. "Castellano," Dmitri greeted, "and the beautiful Mrs. Castellano, so glad you could join us." "Let's dispense with pleasantries," Victor said coldly, taking his seat and pulling Isla down beside him. "You hit my warehouse, killed my people, threatened my wife. I want to know why." "Business," Dmitri said simply. "You were becoming difficult to work with. We needed to remind you that partnerships require flexibility." "By murdering 3 of my men?" "Casualties of negotiation." Dmitri's smile was shark-like. "But we're willing to move past it, for a price." Here it was, the real play. "What price?" Victor asked, though Isla could feel the coiled violence in him. 50% of all shipments moving forward, and your wife's services as an interpreter, exclusive contract. Isla felt Victor's hand tighten on her thigh under the table. His face remained impassive. "No," he said simply. "No?" Dmitri leaned forward. "Then we have a problem." "No, we don't," Victor stood, pulling Isla up with him. "Because you're operating under a fundamental misunderstanding." "And what's that?" "You think threatening what I love makes me weak, makes me willing to compromise." His arm wrapped around Isla's waist, possessive and proud. "But it does the opposite. It makes me willing to burn your entire organization to the ground to protect her." The room went silent, deadly silent. "So here's my counteroffer," Victor continued. "You apologize. You pay restitution for my dead men, and you never, ever threaten my wife again, or I end you. Completely. Permanently." Dmitri laughed. "Big words, Castellano. But you're outnumbered. Outgunned." "Am I?" Victor smiled, cold and predatory. "Isla, darling, what did you notice when we walked in?" This was the test, the moment Victor had been preparing her for. Isla took a breath and met Dmitri's eyes. "I noticed your men aren't where you think they are," she said in perfect Russian. 3 of them are missing, the ones you had positioned outside. Which means Victor's people got to them first. Dmitri's smile faltered. I also notice Sergei keeps glancing at the east entrance. Ayla continued. Like he's expecting reinforcements. But that door is welded shut. Has been since we arrived 30 minutes before you. Now Sergei's expression darkened. And most importantly, Ayla finished, switching to English so everyone could understand. I notice the other families haven't said a word. Because they're not here to support you, Dmitri. They're here to watch you fall. One of the Chinese representatives, an elderly man with sharp eyes, smiled. The girl is correct. We have no love for the Castellanos. But we have less for those who break the rules of engagement. Dmitri, you started a war without consensus. That is unacceptable. The Irish representative nodded. Bad for business. Very bad. Dmitri's face went white. He'd miscalculated. Badly. Victor leaned forward, his voice soft and deadly. So here's what happens next. You take your reduced operation and you leave. Find a new territory, a new market. But you stay away from mine, and you stay far, far away from my wife. And if I refuse, then the other families will help me dismantle you, piece by piece. Permanently. Victor's smile was terrible. Your choice. The silence stretched. Then, slowly, Dmitri stood. This isn't over, Castellano. Yes, Victor said quietly. It is. Dmitri and his men left, rage radiating from every step. But they left. That was what mattered. When they were gone, the Chinese representative stood. Impressive, Mr. Castellano. And your wife. Very clever. You've chosen well. I know, Victor said, pulling Ayla against him. She's my greatest asset. And your greatest weakness, the elderly man added. Be careful. Men who love too deeply in our world rarely survive it. As the others filed out, Ayla turned to Victor. Did he just say? Don't, Victor interrupted. Not here, not now. But his hand was shaking where it gripped hers, and his eyes held something Ayla had never seen before. Fear. Not of the Russians. Not of the war he'd just won. Fear of what he felt for her, and what it might cost them both. Chapter 7. The Price of Protection. The ride home from the warehouse was silent. Victor sat rigid beside her in the back seat, his hand gripping hers with bruising force. Marco drove, eyes flicking to the rear-view mirror every few seconds, watching his boss with obvious concern. Ayla waited for Victor to speak, to acknowledge what had just happened, what she'd done, how she'd helped him win. But he said nothing. Just stared out the window at the passing city lights, jaw tight, shoulders tense. When they arrived at the mansion, he finally released her hand and stepped out without a word. Ayla followed, confused and increasingly worried. Victor. Not now. He strode through the entrance, past a startled Rosa, heading straight for his office. Ayla hurried after him. What's wrong? We won. Dmitri's gone, the other families. I said not now. He spun on her, and the fury in his eyes made her stumble back. Go to our room. Wait for me there. No. The word came out stronger than she felt. Not until you tell me what's wrong. What's wrong? He laughed, harsh and bitter. What's wrong is that I almost got you killed. Again. What's wrong is that you stood in a room full of criminals and used your brilliant mind to save my ass, and all I could think about was how easy it would have been for any of them to put a bullet in you. Understanding dawned. You're angry at yourself. I'm furious at myself. He ran a hand through his hair, disrupting its perfect arrangement. I put you in danger, used you as a weapon, and you... Fuck. Ayla, you were magnificent. You saw everything. Said exactly the right thing. And I've never been more terrified in my life. Ayla crossed to him slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. I'm fine. I'm safe. We're both safe. For now. But what about next time? What about the next Dmitri? The next Valentina? The next person who decides the way to hurt me is through you? His hands gripped her shoulders. I can't lose you. You won't. You don't know that. No one knows that. His forehead pressed against hers, and she felt him trembling. "I've killed men for less than looking at what's mine. I've destroyed entire organizations for slights to my honor. But you, God, Isla, you're the one thing I can't protect with violence, can't keep safe with threats, and it's driving me insane." "Then teach me," she said quietly. "Teach me to protect myself, how to shoot, how to fight, how to survive in your world. Stop treating me like I'm breakable." Victor pulled back, studying her face. "You want to learn?" "I want to be your partner, really your partner, not just your wife or your interpreter or your secret weapon. I want to stand beside you, not behind you." She met his eyes steadily. "Can you handle that?" Something shifted in his expression. Pride, fear, desire. "It's dangerous." "I'm already in danger. At least this way I'll have a fighting chance." He was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Tomorrow. We start tomorrow. But tonight—" His hand cupped her face. "Tonight I need to remind myself you're alive, that you're here, that you're mine." He kissed her with desperate intensity, and Isla felt herself responding with equal fervor. They'd faced death today, stared it down together, and survived. "Bedroom," Victor growled against her lips. "Now." They barely made it. Clothes left a trail from the office to the master suite. Victor lifted her against the door, and Isla wrapped her legs around his waist, both of them frantic, urgent, alive. Later, much later, they lay tangled in sheets, breathing hard. "I meant what I said," Victor murmured against her hair. "I can't lose you." "Then don't push me away when you're scared. Let me in." "I don't know how." The admission was raw, honest. "I've spent my entire life keeping people at a distance. Using them. Discarding them when they're no longer useful. But you— Fuck, Isla, I don't know how to use you without destroying you." "Then don't use me. Love me." The word hung between them like a grenade. Victor went still. "Love," he repeated slowly. "You think I'm capable of that?" "I think you're already doing it. You're just too scared to admit it." He turned to face her, and his eyes were vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. "I don't know how to love someone without destroying them. My father loved my mother. It got her killed. My uncle loved his wife. She betrayed him. Love in my world is—" "A weakness," Isla finished. "I know, but maybe that's because you've never seen it done right. And you have. My mother loved my father even when he gambled away everything, even when he died and left us with nothing. That kind of love. It's not weakness. It's the strongest thing I've ever seen." Victor's hand traced her face, tender and reverent. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not. But you have me anyway," she smiled. "So what are you going to do about it?" "Keep you, protect you, worship you." His thumb traced her lower lip. "And try very hard not to fuck this up. That's all I ask." He kissed her again, slow and deep, and Isla felt something settle in her chest. Not quite love, not yet, but the beginning of it, the promise of it. "Tomorrow we train," Victor said, "but tonight we just exist, together. Is that enough?" "It's perfect." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Training began at dawn. Victor led Isla to a part of the mansion she'd never seen, a basement level that held a fully equipped gym, a shooting range, and what looked like a small armory. "Jesus," Isla breathed, staring at the weapons lining the walls. "Is this even legal?" "Absolutely not." Victor selected a handgun, checking it with practiced ease. "But necessary. Come here." He spent the next hour teaching her the basics, how to hold a gun, how to aim, how to breathe through the shot. His hands on her body were professional, corrective, but Isla still felt heat every time he touched her. "Focus," he murmured in her ear. "Distractions get you killed." "You're the distraction," she muttered back. His laugh was low and warm. "Fair enough, but you still need to learn this, again." By the time they finished, Isla's arms ached, and her ears rang from the gunshots. But she'd hit the target. Not perfectly, but enough. "Good," Victor said, and she heard the approval in his voice. "Tomorrow we work on hand-to-hand combat. Marco will help. He's better at that than I am." Better than you at something? I'm shocked. He pulled her against him, grinning. Smartass, come on, we have a meeting in an hour. What kind of meeting? The kind where we deal with Valentina. Isla's smile faded. She'd almost forgotten about Victor's cousin. What are you going to do with her? That's what the meeting is about. His expression hardened. The family needs to decide. Treason carries consequences. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The family meeting was held in the formal dining room. Isla sat beside Victor, facing a dozen relatives she'd never met. Uncles, cousins, distant relations, who all had stakes in the Castellano organization. Valentina was brought in wearing handcuffs, flanked by 2 guards. Her hair was disheveled, makeup smudged, designer suit wrinkled, but her eyes were still defiant. Valentina Castellano, Victor began, his voice formal. You've been accused of conspiracy with enemy organizations, attempted murder of a family member, and treason against the Castellano name. How do you answer these charges? Fuck you, Valentina spat. You've gone soft, Victor. This organization needs real leadership, not someone who's pussy-whipped by a nobody translator. One of the uncles, a man in his 70s with cold eyes, spoke up. The evidence? Marco stepped forward, presenting documents. Bank transfers. Recorded phone calls. Security footage. The case was airtight. The penalty for treason is death, the uncle continued. By family law, do we agree? Murmurs of assent rippled through the room. Isla's stomach churned. They were talking about execution like it was a business decision. Wait, the word escaped before she could stop it. Every eye turned to her. There's another option. Victor's hand found hers under the table. Isla. Exile, she continued, ignoring the warning squeeze of his fingers. Strip her of her name, her resources, her connections. Send her away with nothing. Let her live with the consequences of her choices instead of ending it quickly. Mercy? Valentina laughed. From you, the woman I tried to kill? Not mercy. Justice. Isla met Valentina's eyes. Death is easy. Living with what you've done, knowing you lost everything for nothing. That's harder. That's real punishment. Silence. Then the elderly uncle smiled. The girl has wisdom. I vote for exile. One by one the others agreed. Even Victor, though his expression was troubled. Valentina Castellano, he declared, you are hereby stripped of your name, your position, and your inheritance. You have 24 hours to leave the country. If you ever return, the sentence will be death. Do you understand? Valentina's defiance crumbled. The reality of what she'd lost, family, power, identity, crashed over her like a wave. Victor, please! Get her out of my sight, he said coldly. As the guards dragged Valentina away, the uncle approached Isla. That was either very clever or very naive, Mrs. Castellano. Why? Because you just showed mercy to someone who wanted you dead. In our world, mercy is often repaid with betrayal. His eyes were sharp. I hope you don't regret it. After the others left, Victor turned to her. Why did you do that? She tried to kill you. Because I'm not like you, Isla said quietly. I can't order someone's death, even someone who deserves it. And if you want me to be your partner, you need to accept that I'll do things differently. She could come back, could hire someone to finish what she started. Then we'll deal with it, together. She took his hand. But I won't become a killer to survive your world. I can't. Victor studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. You're going to be trouble, aren't you? Probably. Can you handle it? I don't know. He pulled her close. But I'm willing to find out. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. That night, Isla got a call from Harborview Hospice. Her mother was asking for her. Victor arranged the visit immediately, insisting on full security. Marco drove them to the hospice, 2 additional cars following with armed guards. This is excessive, Isla protested as they pulled up to the quiet medical facility. This is necessary, Victor corrected. Valentina's gone, but not dead. And the Russians still exist. You're not going anywhere without protection. Isla wanted to argue, but she saw the fear beneath his controlled expression. He was trying, compromising, letting her have this visit despite his instincts screaming danger. 30 minutes, he said. I'll wait here. Marco and 2 men will be posted outside her room. Thank you, she said quietly, kissing his cheek. Her mother's room was exactly as she remembered. Small, sterile, filled with beeping machines. But her mother looked different. Better. Color in her cheeks. Brightness in her eyes that hadn't been there in months. Baby, Ellen Monroe struggled to sit up. You came. Of course I came. Isla hugged her carefully, mindful of the ivy lines. How are you feeling? Stronger. Dr. Chen says the new treatment is working. I might even, her voice caught. I might beat this, Isla. Tears flooded Isla's eyes. Mom, that's wonderful. It's because of you. Whatever you did, whatever deal you made. Her mother's hand gripped hers. Thank you. Guilt twisted in Isla's chest. Her mother had no idea what she'd sacrificed, who she'd married, what she'd become. There's something I need to tell you, Isla began. I got married. Her mother's eyes widened. What? To who? His name is Victor Castellano. He's the one paying for your treatment. For everything. The wealthy client you mentioned? Understanding dawned in her mother's eyes. Oh, Isla, you married him for the money? For me? It's more complicated than that. Is he good to you? Her mother searched her face. Do you love him? Isla opened her mouth to deny it. To explain it was just an arrangement. But the lie wouldn't come. I think I might, she admitted quietly. Which is insane. He's dangerous and controlling, and he forced me into this marriage. But he's also kind in ways I didn't expect. And protective. And when I look at him, I feel alive, her mother finished. You feel alive. Yes. Ellen smiled sadly. That's how I felt about your father. Even when he was destroying us with his gambling, I felt more alive with him than I ever did alone. She squeezed Isla's hand. But baby, love and survival are different things. Don't sacrifice yourself just to feel alive. I'm not sacrificing anything. I'm choosing this. Are you? Or are you just making the best of a bad situation? The question hit too close to home. Isla didn't have an answer. When she left the room 30 minutes later, Victor was waiting in the hallway. One look at her face and he knew something had shifted. What's wrong? My mother asked if I love you. Isla met his eyes. I didn't know how to answer. Victor's expression was unreadable. And now? Do you know? I know that I should hate you, that logically, rationally, I should be planning my escape. But instead, She stopped, swallowed hard. Instead, I'm falling for my captor, which makes me pathetic or insane, or both. Or human, Victor said quietly. He pulled her into his arms, right there in the hospice hallway, not caring who saw. You want to know the truth, Isla? I forced you into this marriage because it was the only way to keep you. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about control. It stopped being about possession. And it became about this. He pressed her hand to his chest where his heart hammered beneath. You've wrecked me. Completely. And I don't know how to fix it. Maybe you don't need to fix it, Isela whispered. Maybe you just need to accept it. Accept that I love you? The words came out raw, like they'd been torn from him. That I love you enough to let you destroy me? Victor! I love you. He said it again, louder. I love you, and it's the most terrifying thing I've ever admitted. Because loving you makes me vulnerable, makes me weak, makes me human, she finished, echoing his words. It makes you human. He kissed her then, desperate and tender, and everything in between. And Isla kissed him back, pouring every complicated emotion into it. I love you too, she whispered against his mouth. God help me, I love you too. They stood there in the hospice hallway, two broken people who'd found something whole in each other and let the truth of it settle over them. It was dangerous. Stupid, absolutely terrifying. But it was real. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Isla felt something other than fear. She felt hope. Chapter 8. The Final Whisper. 3 weeks of peace felt like a gift Isla didn't deserve. She trained with Marco every morning. Hand-to-hand combat, situational awareness, tactical thinking. Victor watched from the sidelines, equal parts proud and terrified every time she landed a hit. Her mother's condition continued to improve. Dr. Chin used words like remission and promising. Isla visited twice a week, always with security, always for exactly 30 minutes. And at night, she fell asleep in Victor's arms, learning the geography of his scars, the rhythm of his breathing, the way he whispered her name in Italian when he thought she was sleeping. It was almost normal, almost safe, almost. The illusion shattered on a Tuesday morning when Marco burst into the breakfast room, face pale. "Boss, we have a situation." Victor set down his coffee immediately. "What kind?" "Valentina, she's back in the country, and she's not alone." Isla's blood turned to ice. "How is that possible? You exiled her." "Exile only works if the person respects it," Victor said grimly, already on his feet. "Who's with her?" "That's the problem." Marco pulled out his tablet, showing security footage. "Dimitri's people, at least a dozen of them, and they're headed here." Victor's expression went cold and deadly. "Lockdown protocol, now. Get Isla to the bunker." "No." Isla stood, heart hammering. "I'm not hiding while you fight my battles." "This isn't a discussion." "You're right, it's not." She met his eyes steadily. "You said you wanted a partner, someone who stands beside you. Well, I'm standing, so tell me the plan." Victor looked like he wanted to argue. Lock her away, keep her safe through force if necessary. But something in her expression stopped him. "Fine," he said tightly. "But you do exactly what I say, understand?" "Understood." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The Castellano estate had been built with defense in mind. Reinforced walls, security cameras covering every angle, panic rooms and escape routes. Victor had planned for war. He just never expected to be fighting it with the woman he loved at his side. "They'll try to breach the east gate," Marco said, studying the security feeds. "It's the weakest point." "Let them," Victor said coldly. "We'll be waiting. How many men do we have?" 20 on site, another 15 en route. Against Dimitri's dozen and Valentina's desperation. Victor's hand found Isla's, squeezing briefly. "We've faced worse odds." The first explosion came at noon, the east gate, just as predicted. Isla watched on the security monitors as armed men poured through the breach. Valentina, visible among them, her face twisted with hatred. "She really wants me dead," Isla murmured. "She wants revenge." Victor checked his gun with practiced ease. "For being exiled, for losing everything. You were merciful, and she's repaying it with betrayal, just like my uncle warned. Do you regret it, letting her live?" "I regret that you have to see what happens now." His eyes were cold. "Stay here with Marco, I'm going to end this." "Victor!" He kissed her, hard and fast. "I love you, remember that." Then he was gone, moving toward the door with lethal purpose. Isla turned to Marco. "Give me a gun." "Boss said." "I know what he said. Give me a gun anyway." Marco hesitated, then handed her a pistol. "Stay behind me. Don't do anything stupid." No promises. They moved through the mansion together, the sound of gunfire growing louder. Victor's men were engaged with Dimitri's forces in the main foyer. Bodies already littered the marble floor. Isla's hands shook, but she kept the gun steady, remembering Victor's training. Breathe, aim, fire only when certain. A figure emerged from a side corridor. One of Dimitri's men, weapon raised. Marco shot him before Isla could react. The body fell with a sickening thud. "Keep moving," Marco ordered. They found Victor in the east wing, trading fire with 3 attackers. He moved with brutal efficiency, 1 shot, 1 kill. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Isla had never seen him like this. The businessman, the husband, the man who held her gently at night, all gone. This was Victor Castellano, the crime lord, the killer. And it should have terrified her. Instead, she felt safe. "Behind you!" she screamed as another attacker appeared. Victor spun and fired in one smooth motion. The threat eliminated. His eyes found hers across the corridor, and even in the middle of a firefight, she saw relief. "I told you to stay in the office. I don't follow orders well. You should know that by now." Despite everything, he smiled. "Stubborn woman. You love it." "I love you." The moment shattered as more men poured in. Victor pulled Isla behind a pillar, Marco covering their retreat. The gunfire was deafening. "Where's Valentina?" Isla shouted over the noise. "No idea, but she'll come for you eventually. It's personal for her." As if summoned, Valentina's voice echoed through the corridor. "Isla, I know you're here. Come out and face me, you coward." Victor's grip on her arm tightened. "Don't." "She'll keep coming," Isla said quietly. "Keep putting you in danger. This doesn't end until she's stopped." "Then I'll stop her." "No." Isla pulled free, meeting his eyes. "This is my fight. She's here because of me. Because I showed mercy. Let me finish it." "Absolutely not." "Trust me," she interrupted. "You said I'm brilliant, that I see things others miss. Trust me to handle this." The battle raged in Victor's eyes, the need to protect her versus the need to respect her choices. Finally, painfully, he nodded. "Marco goes with you. And if anything happens, it won't." She kissed him quickly. "I promise." Isla moved toward Valentina's voice, Marco shadowing her. They found her in the library, surrounded by shattered glass and overturned furniture. She held a gun, eyes wild. "There you are," Valentina spat. "The perfect little wife. Did you enjoy stealing my life?" "I didn't steal anything," Isla said calmly, keeping her own weapon lowered. "You threw it away." "I was protecting the family. Victor was going soft because of you." "No, you were protecting your pride, your position. You saw me as a threat to your power and decided to eliminate me rather than adapt." "Adapt?" Valentina laughed bitterly. "To what? Becoming weak like Victor? Caring about someone more than the organization? That's not weakness, that's evolution." Isla took a careful step forward. "Victor is stronger now than he's ever been, because he has something worth fighting for beyond power." Sentimental bullshit. No truth. And deep down, you know it. That's why you're so angry. Because you gambled everything on your version of strength, and you lost. Valentina's hand trembled on the gun. "I should have killed you in the bunker when I had the chance. But you didn't, and now you're here, betraying the family again, working with the Russians. Putting everyone in danger. For what? Revenge? For justice?" "No," Isla shook her head. "For ego, because you can't accept that you were wrong." "I wasn't wrong." "You betrayed your family, tried to kill me, aligned with enemies. And now you're here with a gun, making the same mistakes all over again." Isla's voice softened. "It doesn't have to end like this, Valentina. Put down the gun, walk away, before Victor has no choice but to kill you." "He won't kill me. I'm family." "You stopped being family the moment you pulled that trigger in the bunker." Victor's voice came from the doorway. He stepped into view, weapon trained on Valentina. "It's over, cousin. Dimitri's men are dead or captured. You're alone. Put down the gun." Valentina's eyes darted between them, calculating. Then, suddenly, she smiled. "You're right. It is over." She raised the gun, not at Isla, but at Victor. Everything happened in slow motion. Isla saw Valentina's finger tighten on the trigger, saw Victor start to move, but knowing he'd be too slow, saw the future collapse into this single moment. She didn't think, just acted. Isla fired. The shot took Valentina in the shoulder, spinning her around. The gun flew from her hand, clattering across the floor. Valentina collapsed, screaming. Marco rushed forward, kicking the weapon away and securing her. Victor stood frozen, staring at Isla. "You shot her," he said quietly. "I shot her shoulder. Non-lethal. She'll live to face justice. Real justice this time." Isla's hands were shaking now, the adrenaline crash hitting hard. I told you I couldn't kill, but I could stop her. Victor crossed to her in 2 strides, pulling her into his arms. You saved my life. You've saved mine more times than I can count. I owed you one. He laughed, the sound almost hysterical. God, I love you, you beautiful, brilliant, terrifying woman. I love you too. Isla looked down at Valentina, being restrained by Marco. What happens now? Now? Victor's expression hardened. Now she answers for her crimes. All of them. The family won't be merciful twice. Valentina was taken away, still screaming threats. The surviving Russian mercenaries were rounded up. By evening, the mansion was secure again, though the damage was extensive. Isla sat in Victor's office, watching cleanup crews work through the windows. Her hands had finally stopped shaking. You were right, Victor said from the doorway. About what? About everything. About me going soft. About love not being weakness. About you being my partner, not my property. He crossed to her, pulling her to her feet. You saved my life today. Not just physically. You've been saving me since the moment you walked into that hotel suite. I seem to remember being coerced into that meeting, Isla said with a small smile. Fair point, his thumb traced her jaw. Can you forgive me? For everything? For threatening you, forcing you into marriage, controlling your life? Only if you forgive me for falling in love with my captor. Pretty sure that makes me certifiably insane. We're both insane then. He kissed her softly, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Neither would I. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The family tribunal took 3 days. Valentina was found guilty of treason, conspiracy, attempted murder, and violation of exile. The vote was unanimous. This time there would be no mercy, no second chances. Isla didn't attend the execution, couldn't bring herself to watch, even knowing Valentina had tried to kill them both. Victor went alone, coming home hours later with shadows in his eyes. It's done, he said quietly. Isla held him, feeling him tremble. I'm sorry. Don't be. She made her choices. He pulled back, meeting her eyes. We make ours. And what choice are we making? To live, really live. Not just survive, not just exist in constant danger, but actually live. His hand found hers. I've been thinking about getting out, stepping back from the organization, letting someone else lead. Isla's heart skipped. Are you serious? I'm serious about you, about us, about not wasting whatever time we have. He smiled, tired but genuine. Your mother is going into remission. We could travel, see the world, use your languages for something other than negotiating with criminals. You'd really do that? Walk away from everything you've built? I'd do anything for you, including becoming a better man than I am. You're already a good man, Victor. Complicated, yes. Dangerous, absolutely. But good where it counts. She kissed him softly. And I'll go anywhere with you, as long as we're together. Together, he agreed, always. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 6 months later, Isla stood on a balcony overlooking the Amalfi Coast, watching the sunset paint the Mediterranean in shades of gold and crimson. Behind her, she heard Victor speaking rapid Italian on the phone, handling business for the last time. He'd kept his promise, stepped back from the organization, placing trusted lieutenants in charge. They'd kept the mansion in Connecticut but spent most of their time traveling. Italy, France, Japan, anywhere Isla wanted to go, Victor followed. Her mother had moved into a care facility near the coast, full remission now, learning to paint watercolors in her spare time. She'd forgiven Isla for the deception, even grown to like Victor after seeing how he treated her daughter. All done, Victor said, joining her on the balcony. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. That's the last of it. I'm officially retired. How does it feel? Terrifying, liberating, perfect. He kissed her shoulder. How are you feeling? Isla smiled, placing her hand over her still flat stomach. They'd only confirmed it yesterday, but the knowledge filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. "I'm feeling like our lives are about to get even more complicated," she said. Victor went still. "Are you?" "Pregnant, yes." She turned in his arms, watching emotions chase across his face. "I know we didn't plan it, and the timing is terrible, but—" He kissed her, cutting off her nervous rambling. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Terrible timing," he agreed. "Completely unplanned, absolutely terrifying. But perfect. You're perfect. This is perfect." His hand settled on her stomach, reverent and possessive. "A family, a real family, with you." "With me," Isla confirmed. "Are you ready for this?" "Probably not, but I'll learn. We'll learn together." He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "Thank you." "For what?" "For saving me, for loving me, for giving me a reason to be better than I was." He pulled her close. "For everything." Isla rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Behind them, the sun set over the Italian coast. Before them, an uncertain but hopeful future stretched out. They'd started with whispers and threats, with coercion and fear. They'd survived betrayal and violence, faced death together, and emerged stronger. And now they had this love, freedom, and the promise of new life. "I love you," Isla whispered. "Ti amo," Victor replied in Italian, his favorite language. "Per sempre." Forever. It was a promise neither of them took lightly. A vow more binding than the forced marriage that started all this. A choice they made freely. Together. As the last light faded from the sky, Isla thought back to that first night. The hotel suite. The whispered Russian phrase that changed everything. The moment Victor looked at her and saw someone worth keeping instead of killing. She'd walked into his world as a prisoner, an interpreter who understood too much, a woman who knew too many secrets. But she'd walked out as something else entirely. His partner, his love, his equal. And that, Isla thought as Victor's arms tightened around her, was the greatest translation of all. From captive to beloved. From whispers of death to promises of life. From fear to freedom. Finally, impossibly beautifully free. Epilogue. The interpretation. 2 years later, Isla stood in the doorway of the nursery, watching Victor rock their daughter to sleep. He sang softly in Italian. A lullaby his mother had sung to him, he'd told her once. The only good memory he had of his childhood. Sofia Iselina Castellano was 6 months old, with her father's gray eyes and her mother's dark hair. She'd been born on a rainy spring morning in a private hospital in Rome, surrounded by the best doctors money could buy and loved beyond measure. Victor looked up, catching Isla watching. "She's fighting sleep," he whispered, "just like her mother." "She gets her stubbornness from you," Isla countered, moving into the room. "Impossible. I'm perfectly reasonable." "You threatened to buy the entire hospital when the nurse suggested I couldn't have my own room." "That was reasonable. You needed privacy." But he was smiling as he said it. Sophia's eyes finally closed, her tiny fist uncurling as sleep claimed her. Victor placed her in the crib with infinite care, as if she were made of glass. For a man who'd once killed without hesitation, his gentleness with their daughter never ceased to amaze Isla. They stood together, watching her sleep. The nursery was painted soft yellow, filled with toys and books in 7 different languages, because their daughter would grow up multilingual, cultured, and most importantly, loved. "Your mother called," Victor said quietly. "She wants to know when we're bringing Sophia to visit." "Next week, if you can stand being separated from her for a few hours." "I'll manage, barely." He pulled Isla against him. "How are you feeling?" "Tired, happy, still getting used to this whole motherhood thing." She leaned into his warmth. "You?" "Terrified every second of every day that something will happen to either of you, but also happier than I ever thought possible." Isla turned in his arms. "Any regrets? About leaving the organization? About this life?" "None." His answer was immediate. I'd burn it all down again in a heartbeat for this, for you, for her. They'd settled permanently in Italy after Sophia was born, a villa outside Florence with gardens and security and enough distance from Victor's old life that the ghosts couldn't follow. Marco had visited once, reporting that the organization was thriving under new leadership. They'd sent gifts for the baby and respected Victor's retirement. For now. Do you miss it? Isla asked. The power? The control? Sometimes, Victor admitted. Old habits. But then Sophia smiles at me, or you walk into a room, and I remember what I traded it for. There's no competition. They moved to their bedroom, the master suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Tuscan countryside. Isla had been painting earlier, and her easel still held a half-finished landscape. You're getting better, Victor observed, studying the canvas. I have a good teacher. Her mother had taken up painting during her recovery and passed the skill to Isla during their visits. She says I have an eye for detail. You've always had that. You saw through me from the beginning. Not through you, into you. Isla touched his face. I saw the man you were trying not to be, the one who wanted to be better. And you loved him anyway, God knows why. Because he loved me first, in his twisted, controlling, slightly terrifying way. She smiled. And because he gave me everything I didn't know I wanted. A forced marriage in constant danger? A partnership, a family, a purpose. She gestured to the bookshelves lining one wall, filled with her translations. She'd been working freelance, translating literature and poetry instead of criminal negotiations. You gave me freedom, Victor, real freedom. You earned it. You were never really my prisoner, Isla. I was always yours. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and Isla felt the familiar heat rise between them. 2 years of marriage hadn't dulled the attraction. If anything, it had intensified, layered now with trust and understanding, and the bone-deep knowledge that they'd survived the worst and come out whole. Sophia's asleep, Victor murmured against her lips. We have at least 2 hours before she wakes. What did you have in mind? Reminding my wife how much I adore her. Just adore? Love, worship, need with an intensity that still terrifies me. His hands slid into her hair. Better? Much. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Later, as they lay tangled in sheets, Victor's phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. Answer it, Isla said. It might be important. Victor sighed and checked the screen. His expression shifted. Something between surprise and concern. What is it? Marco, he says there's a situation. Someone's been asking questions about me, about us. Ice touched Isla's spine. What kind of questions? The kind that suggests someone's looking for leverage. Victor was already out of bed, pulling on clothes. I need to make some calls. Make sure our security is still intact. Victor. It's probably nothing. Paranoia from years in that life. But his eyes were hard, calculating. The crime lord bleeding through the retired husband. But I won't take chances. Not with you and Sophia. He spent the next hour in his office, speaking rapid Italian into the phone. Isla checked on Sophia, still sleeping peacefully, and tried not to panic. They'd been safe for 2 years, built a life away from violence and danger. Surely it would last. Surely. When Victor returned, his expression was neutral. It's handled. Marco's people are investigating. Probably just a journalist digging into old stories. But we're increasing security, just in case. He pulled her close. I promise to protect you, both of you. That promise doesn't expire just because we left that world. I know, Isla breathed in his scent. Cologne and danger in home. We'll be okay. We've survived worse. We have, but I'd prefer not to test that again. He kissed her forehead. Come to bed. Sophia will be up in a few hours demanding breakfast. They slept wrapped around each other, and if Victor held her a little tighter than usual, Isla didn't mention it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Morning came with Sophia's cries and the smell of coffee. Victor had already been up for hours, Isla could tell. His side of the bed was cold, and she could hear him moving around downstairs. She fed Sophia, changed her, played with her on the nursery floor. Their daughter was getting stronger every day. Soon she'd be crawling, then walking, then running into trouble with that Castellano stubbornness. "There are my girls," Victor said from the doorway. He'd showered and changed, looking every inch the successful businessman. No one would guess his past. "How's my Principessa this morning?" Sophia squealed at the sound of his voice, reaching for him with chubby arms. Victor scooped her up, and Isla's heart melted watching them together. "Any updates?" she asked. "All clear. False alarm." Marco traced the questions to a graduate student writing a thesis on organized crime families. Completely harmless. Relief flooded through her. "So we're safe." "We're safe." He transferred Sophia to Isla's arms. "I have a meeting in Florence this afternoon. Legitimate business. Investing in a winery. Will you both be all right here?" "We'll be fine." "Rosa's here, and the security team. Go, build your wine empire." He kissed them both, lingering on Isla's lips. "I love you." "Ti amo," she replied in Italian. Their private language, the one they'd built together. After he left, Isla took Sophia into the garden. The Tuscan sun was warm, the air scented with lavender and roses. Her daughter babbled happily, watching butterflies dance between flowers. "You're so lucky," Isla told her. "You'll never know the fear I lived with. The choices I had to make. You'll grow up, safe, and loved, and free." Sophia grabbed her mother's finger, gripping tight. "Your father was a dangerous man," Isla continued softly. "Some would say he still is. But he's trying to be better. For you, for me, for us." She kissed her daughter's head. "And I think he's succeeding." Her phone buzzed. A text from Victor. "Missing you already. The wine better be exceptional to justify leaving you two." Isla smiled and typed back, "It better be. Bring home a bottle, or 12. His response was immediate. "Always so demanding. I love it." She settled into a garden chair, Sophia content in her arms, and thought about how far they'd come. From that hotel suite where everything started. From whispered Russian and threatened death. From forced vows to freely given love. Her mother was right. Love and survival were different things. But sometimes, if you were lucky, you got both. Isla looked down at her daughter. "Want to know a secret?" she whispered. "I walked into a room and heard something I shouldn't have, and it changed everything. For better or worse, I'll never know. But it gave me you, and your father, and this life." Sophia yawned, already getting sleepy again. "So maybe," Isla continued, "maybe understanding that Whisper was the best thing that ever happened to me, even if it was terrifying at the time. Even if it shouldn't have worked out, even if every odd was against us." She stood, carrying Sophia back inside. The villa was quiet, peaceful, safe. Everything she'd ever wanted, earned through fear and courage in equal measure. Victor came home that evening with 2 cases of wine and stories about the vineyard. They had dinner on the terrace, Sophia between them in her high chair, making a mess of her food and laughing at everything. "This is perfect," Victor said, watching Isla wipe mashed peas from Sophia's face. "Chaotic, you mean? Perfect chaos. The best kind." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "Thank you." "For what?" "For walking into that hotel suite. For understanding what you shouldn't have. For being too smart and too brave for your own good." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "For choosing to stay even when you could have run. For loving me even when I didn't deserve it." "You deserved it," Isla said softly. "You just didn't believe it yet." "I believe it now. Because of you." As the sun set over the Tuscan hills, painting the sky in impossible colors, Isla looked at her family, her dangerous, devoted husband, and her perfect daughter, and knew she'd make the same choices all over again. The whisper that started everything, The glance that changed it all, the love that saved them both. "Ti amo," she said. "Per sempre," Victor replied. "Forever." And this time, when he said it, there was no threat beneath. No coercion, no shadow of the man who'd forced her into marriage. Just love. Pure, complicated, hard-won love. The best translation of all. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. That night, after Sophia was asleep and they lay in bed together, Victor asked the question he'd been holding back. "Do you ever regret it, any of it?" Isla thought about it honestly. The fear, the danger, the impossible choices. The nights she'd cried herself to sleep in the beginning. The terror of falling for her captor. "No," she said finally, "I wouldn't change any of it. Because changing one thing changes everything, and I love where we ended up. Even though I forced you into this, you gave me a choice. It was a terrible choice between death and marriage, but it was still a choice. And I made it. Everything after that, falling in love with you, choosing to stay, choosing to build this life, those were my choices too." Victor pulled her closer. "You're too generous." "No, I'm honest. You were a monster who became a man. I was a prisoner who became a partner. We both changed, we both grew, and now we're here." "Here," Victor echoed, "with everything I never knew I wanted." "Exactly." They lay in comfortable silence, listening to the Italian night. Crickets chirped. A breeze rustled through the cypress trees. Somewhere in the nursery, Sophia made soft sleeping sounds. Perfect. Imperfect. Real. "Isla?" "Thank you for understanding that whisper, for being in that hotel suite, for changing my life. Thank you for not killing me." He laughed, and she felt it rumble through his chest. "Lowest bar ever, but you're welcome." "I love you, Victor Castellano. Criminal, husband, father, wine investor, and the most complicated man I've ever met. I love you, Isla Castellano. Translator, wife, mother, warrior, and the woman who saved my life by simply being herself." They kissed in the moonlight, and it tasted like forever. Like promises kept and new beginnings. Like the end of one story and the beginning of another. And somewhere in the nursery, their daughter, born from fear and danger and impossible love, slept peacefully, dreaming of a future where whispers meant lullabies, not threats. Where love was freedom, not captivity. Where happily ever after wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that was enough. More than enough. Everything. The end.